is fascinating. There is no third person in province, right? Who is not a Russia island, a country even more like a country Russia, or someone who delays his daughter from getting married. So the Gemara says, I'm actually going to get Badash Adam. What does it mean? This doesn't mean every single poor person is a cunning Russia. What it means is every cunning Russia ultimately becomes an onion, becomes impoverished. Just like every single man who delays marrying off his daughter for his own purposes ultimately becomes impoverished. What? So the says, we won't be able to see everything. The says, actually, I'm actually going to get Badash Adam. Understand, the guy who delays marrying off his daughter coming Russia, and it says, it's coming like that. His purpose is to really put prospects right because he wants to go ahead and have a fundamental sequence for needs. That's what's happening over here. That's what's driving out of this. Is that not a coming Russia? Rabbi was nowadays. Rabbi was an example of a person who is a coming Russia, is going to be accomplished. Zed Hamasha Gas is ultimately someone who intentionally delays marrying off his daughter to go ahead and satisfy his needs. So let's say, just how profound this is. What does this mean? Is someone who delays marrying off his own daughter, right, is going to go and become honey, or someone who's turning Russia is going to become an honey, what's the track of it? Cutting down your things to people. Cutting down your ears, cutting your own ears before the needs of the other. And so your father who goes ahead, and says, you know what, I don't want to marry my girl. I'm going to get married. I don't want to marry her yet because, again, it doesn't suit my needs. It doesn't suit my needs. So it's like that's pretty low needs before your child needs. Who's becoming Russia? Becoming Russia is a person, as you'll see in just a moment, is a person who puts his own needs in front of other people's needs. So it's like, so a person who prioritizes his needs over other people's needs. There's a cosmic justice in the world. The Bible says you're putting your own agenda of self-advancement in front of your own child in front of other people. What ends up happening to such a person? What ends up happening? You become impoverished. You become poor. Maybe not maybe over time. Why? Because that's not how the Shadowfield wants the youth to act. The Devotion does not want us to be self-serving. The Devotion says this is incredibly important in general. First of all, there's a tremendous parenting lesson that's involved here. A lot of times as parents, without even realizing it, we put our own needs before our children's needs. Like we have this vision for our children about what we want them to become. Right? And I need them to become educated like this. And I want them professionally to do this. And they can't get married until they reach this threshold or this or this or that. Now, by the way, sometimes that's great. But sometimes what we don't realize is that's not what my kid needs. That's what I need. That's what I need. And that's selfish behavior. That's putting you only before your child. Everybody else is one of the hardest things I have to figure out. Like, am I taking these positions because I have to be better for my child? Or am I taking these positions because they're actually better for me? And it's hard because a lot of times our own needs and our children here tend to become intertwined with entertainment. But you see, for me, like, one of the things that we're so careful about is parenting is making sure, let's say, one of the great things that I was in parenting, one of the great things of parenting is often as parenting we think like our kids represent a do-over for ourselves, right? Everything that I did wrong in life, I'm going to get right through my kids. Well, that's fine, but your kids don't do it. And your kids didn't sign up to become a better version of you. My child is something different. How you know he's different than you? Different cultures, different abilities, and a different destiny. So you have to be so careful. You see it over there. It's like, have these incredible, beautiful dreams, which are so beautiful. Only issue is they never check with the kid whether or not that's what the kid wants to do. Does the kid want to go down this path? Does the kid want this kind of kids? Does the kid want this kind of education? Does the kid want this kind of because everything's all good. You just got to check with the child. Let's putting parental desire, parental objectives before the child, and that's because I'll say it's fundamentally selfish. And when you're selfish in life, just understand Exactly. The Russia alone wants his own needs, his own needs before the needs of others. You could try that, and it may be successful in the short term, but in the long term, ultimately, again, in the long term, ultimately, you become impoverished. But also, that the sin of parenting is make sure that the decisions you're making are the ones that are good for your child, and not the ones that seem to benefit you. Incredible. All right, let's go back to it. So you might also kind of fall in love with it. You know, it says, I'm not trying to be sure to keep on having zone. It's going to be careful. Be careful about getting advice from someone who is only giving you advice ultimately, I guess, because it benefits them. That's how you ask. Someone who gives you Eitzah, you think that's how it's going to like. So this is kind of a caveat. Like the word Russia Arab is, the Russia Arab is not someone who just stuffing coffee into your mouth. The Russia Arab is a person who might often be giving you advice, and it may not be even the worst advice for you, but it's not the best advice for you. But you know what the best advice for? For him. And so like this, sometimes without even realizing it. What we give to our children, or the advice we give to our children, it's the advice that benefits us, benefits me as a parent, not that benefits my child. So once I say Rabbi keep this is kind of a follow-up. Be careful with someone who gives you advice in accordance with their also better. It's also very profound. Hear this right from Rabbi Akiva. November again, Rabbi Akiva knows what it's like to give advice from different people. Because Rabbi Akiva, does like two different groups of people. Really just one group is one person. There are one group of people who constantly actually told you you will never amount to anything more than a shepherd. Not that you ever, that's what you will do. Just be the best shepherd you can be. And those people, and then you keep it out of one person who is good in his years, that one person happened to be his wife, and Rachel told you, you can do whatever you want to do. Like, you don't become good at all, or you become the best, you don't become the best at the best. You can do that. So you keep us and sit there and you just have to say, just be careful who you get advice from. Because I have listened to the majority of people who whisper in my ear, I would have been a very good shepherd, me as a shepherd, and that's it. But by Hashem, I took advice from someone who wasn't self-serving, but rather I took advice from someone who really and truly cared about me, and as a result, I would keep it and keep it. I'm not saying people is okay, but the person goes in the night, they sit back to this. Which a 9 up and talk to a much of you, and that man seeking show with no cutter. Or, I mean, what's the reverse is a man marries the woman to remind her son. Just look like my son is not the kid you got last, right? But my son represents again a child. So he's married off again, an adult woman to remind her son. So it says, when they're going to come together and use every year, it's again, you're going to be unfulfilling marriages, right? And the first, the dead is not as much as they don't have the same drive. Again, the second, the son, who's a child, is married to a woman, now don't have the same drive. Or listen to this. Now, not say if somebody goes down his way to return a lost object to a non-Jew. What's the Gemara says, I love a person about such a person. It says, the mind is supposed halava and satsira, yoga Hashem salach lo. The Gemara says that the way the Gemara's understanding is possible over here, which is really quite profound. The mind supposed halava and satsira means that to look at it, Rashi says the mind supposed to look what? Rashi understands supposed means to connect. Now let's be connected over here. Rashi says, that's why that in Rashi is out. Because it's like Smeya, Savea the Davar, in Summer the Davar. Zoki the Lord is a scale Hashish, Zoki is a Davar Kata. This is this. Quite reminding saying as follows. You can't connect someone who is thirsty with someone who is sated and expect them to go ahead and complement each other. So, in other so the idea over here is, right? So the young woman is thirsty. She wants intimacy. The younger man is sated. The young boy is sated. The woman is thirsty. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work to pair up somebody who is thirsty with somebody who is sated. Because however, when I say again, it doesn't work. And what's it, by the way, if it happens to you, this is a profound assault, not just by intimacy, but also by marriage. Because you're saying, you know, in order to have true shalom bayis, in order to have true growth in a marriage, both parties in the marriage have to want growth. Like, the worst thing that can happen is when a wife becomes her husband's mashgiach. Like, you know, if a wife is keeping her husband out of bed in the night, get up to shit, that's it, it's a mistake. That's it. The same way if a husband is telling his wife, you know, you need to become a consultant, you need to be starting Shabbos, you know, and you need to wait for Shabbos at the midday on Friday, that it's a disaster. What do I see for success? Both have to be thirsty. Both have to be thirsty. Husband has to be thirsty for growth. A wife has to be thirsty for growth. That's a successful marriage. If one is thirsty and one is sated, it's going to be good. Because one is always going to be pushing, one is always going to be wanting, and the other one ultimately is going to become resentful. If both are thirsty, then when I say that's the recipe for success. If both are sated, then what? Other disaster also. Because if both are sated, then that represents a life of complacency, a life of mediocrity. Both are thirsty, it's equal to success. Both are sated, it's equal to failure. One is thirsty, one is sated. A lot of shalom bayis issues. So you know, like, what about the matzah in the kusi? What's wrong? Throwing your head, and returning a lost object to an Jew. I don't know, that sounds like a nice thing. What's wrong with that? So what's the reason that actually mentions it? I'm not saying the kusi. Heshva, the kusi b'Yisrael. Umana ba'atzlo, sha'shavas ha'rei That's like quotation to return the lost objects to non-Jews. That's what we're saying. I'm not saying like this. But the person who thinks that returning a lost object to a non-Jew is just as important as the mitzvah of Hashava Saveda, that's wrong. That's wrong. But we're going to say something that is incredibly politically incorrect, which is Jews and non-Jews are not the same. We're not the same. And we should not interact with each other as we always say. You have to have respect for all of humanity. You have to treat everyone with dignity. Whereas if there's a different level of interaction and a different level of devotion that we must have to each other. And it was like, we don't have to be apologetic about saying it. One simple reason. No one looks out for us except us. And no one has our back except us. And I will say, you know, for so many of us, our senses were dulled to this, right? We thought again, after the Holocaust, never again, everybody loves us, and anti-Semitism is not what it used to be, and then October 7th happened, and we realized the world is the same exact world that it has been for thousands of years. And give the world a chance to annihilate the Jews, and we did it. And give the world a chance to go ahead and turn into anti-Semitic rituals, and we'll do it. And it doesn't matter what country it is, and even as great as this hope is to us, the anti-Semitism is relevant and teaching us one simple lesson. Circle the wagons. Look out for each other, because no one else is going to look out for us but us. So if you're one of those by people, right, and tikkun olam, and everything else, and we're one big community of humanity, you're a fool. We're not one big community of humanity. We're not. There's us, and there's them. And that's the way the world works. Like, when Mashiach comes, and when Hashem, that'll change. And when Mashiach comes, it will be Yasa Kulam Agida Apos. Humanity will become one. But until that day, humanity is not one. There's Klal Yisrael, and there's everyone else. It's Am V'Adas Rishto. We are one in this world. But again, we don't want to be a nation, or not as individuals, because we have each other, and we always have each other. And this is what the Lord said. If we do just like the bunch of Shabbos, I really go, oh, okay, community of mankind. Right? You know what it says? You're fool. That's not true. There's not one thing that will be mankind. And as again, to be clear, the evolution of dignity, the evolution of respect to every single person. But just understand that there's a different system of conduct, a different system of allegiance, and a different system of commitment. And we have that parallel because all we have is each other. We have no one else but each other. And the moment we forget that is the moment we put ourselves in an overwhelmingly precarious situation. Second, beloved, should you return Allah advocate, see, as you should. If you get extra change at the supermarket, should you return the extra change? 1,000% of say. Yes. And don't tell me because you get extra money, right? You find. You be a shopper for your needs. But just understand that there's a difference between that and the reason how Shama said it represents the personal contract that we have with one another. Incredible. So it's amazing. There's a back shop. How are you guys reached out to you for this? Is like ridiculous. A man who loves his wife like his own body, but the fact that he don't say before. And when he gives you cover, warriors, as a witness, you have to love your wife like yourself. Right? You have to honor her more than yourself. And also, what does that mean? A lot of times they say you have to go out. So many person that have something to shout about this. And so what does this mean? First of all, why don't we say love you like more than yourself? What's the simple answer? Because you can't. It's important you say it. Listen, the thing that I have more than anything is myself. The strongest reflex we have within ourselves is self-preservation. Right? Because deep down, like, the most important, what people say, please. So the says, if you could love your wife as much as you love yourself, that's godless. That's godless. Now, what does it mean to be Mohammed? Now, because love is an emotion. So from an emotional perspective, you can feel that sense of love to your wife, and you can feel you care about her as much as you care about yourself. That's fantastic. The covered is our physical behaviors. Right? So then when it comes to physical behaviors, then you have to do more for your wife than what you do for yourself. And listen, that's on a very individual level. So if you for yourself, you get a present on your birthday, so you actually get a present on your birthday, you usually get a present multiple other times. You never cover. You take for yourself. You like certain things, whatever you like, make sure that your wife has even more than that. Because cover is physically measurable. So Ava, which is an emotion, if you could care about your wife as much as you care about yourself, that's fantastic. But cover that you give, that's behavioral. The cover you give to your wife has to surpass the cover you give for yourself. And you watch yourself. Now, imagine one of the girls that inshallah, and let's say again, this is so beautiful, and when he leads his children in a proper path. So let's say these captivities and these demands that we can spend all the good he's given away. What is massive? So what do you do? What's my dream? God, what does God do? Shows you the way, leads. Right? Listen, the most annoying guys are the ones who talk too much. Just be quiet and move. Right? Talk like simple parenting. Effective parenting. Much less talking, much more doing. Be a metric. Don't tell your kids what to do. Tell your kids what to do. Show them what to do. Listen, I'm talking over here. Like this is a motivated group. Whether your kids are asleep or not asleep, you think they don't know on some level that you're waking up early to come to shul, to learn, to dive into tzibur, that you're mostly nefesh, giving up sleep is true. No joke about it. It's tremendously sleep. That's not that. None of us are going to sleep at 8 o'clock at night or getting like a normal night's sleep, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Imagine, it's all about the hajjaka. It's the same thing you want to get saying that's right at the table, you put some zingers, you do all that stuff. It's very nice. It's very beautiful. All important. The most important thing is how you lead. What is the example that you set? And if you lead your children by example on a Dara Ushara, that's guaranteed. Because of us, Mama sees it, we'll get it done. Mama say, now someone put here, okay, this is really early. And someone put here for means a little bit before they reach adulthood. Right? Which again, today's day age is about 25, right? So not even that, a little bit before they reach adulthood. I love what that's all there. So that's such a person wants to see. It's four ingredients over here. Number one, love your wife as much as you love yourself. If you can reach that, people like this, yeah, I love my wife more than I love myself. I love my kid. Because I say, calm down. Right? If you can love your wife as much as you love yourself, that's an accomplishment. That's an accomplishment, right? That's what lets you love yourself. Number two, but give them more cover, which is behavioral stuff. Give them more cover, then the cover you take for yourself. Number three, don't tell your kids what to do, but be a matcher. Be a good guy. You show them what to do. And number four, marry your children off a little bit before adulthood. And that goes into what it says, Pasuk says, no, and you have to show everything is going to be good. He's going to be peace in your tent. Your home will be remembered for good, and ultimately again you will not come to sin. So the Hebrews says about why is all of this brought down? Because again, we just saw before, the Gemara said that you shouldn't marry off your kid before adulthood. So what's happening there? So the Gemara says, no, it's not a catch up. It's not a catch up. The Gemara says, someone looking at their shame. No, ultimately again, this is really talking about right before they reach the age of adulthood. So again, they're on the cusp of adulthood. So the might say, again, that's not a big deal. Speaking about not marrying up your child as a couple, that's not an issue when you're still very young. Incredible. I want to know, we'll stop over for today. We'll find tomorrow's a very short document session. Kind of a short doc. Was that tremendous way to start the week? Scratch on you. All right, so guys, you're going to get everywhere.
Are you sure William's younger than I don't remember having a thermometer in my mouth. Why did you bring this up? I don't remember. I don't think it was. I think they had the ones for the mouth. Did you ever take it out of this one? Did you ever give them a little ATM thermometer check? Why did you just smell? The 6,000 ever spray the enema against the thermometer and then. All right, it's been so much fun. That's very true. Now, you guys are all legends. How loud can this guys hit for the Montgomerys, huh?
All right, folks, good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning. To thank our commentary sponsors for the month of Adar. Annual commentary sponsor, Tashin Pehev, Tosim Mishpacha, for dedicating all the Shuman Drushes this year, wishing a Mazel Tov to Yoshua Mordechai Tosin on his engagement to Rabbi Cohen. Mazel Tov to the Chazon Academy, the Zohar Master to build a Bayis Neman Yisrael, which endures at Meda Esim Shem. Our commentary sponsors for the month of Adar, Haba Arun Tova, Stephen Tarizin, in loving memory of Tari's father, Dr. Hari Khan, C. Hirsch, Ben Yosef HaKohen, and the Ziv, Levin, and Berman families in memory of Mr. William Ziv, Zev, Shmuel, Ben Yisrael, and Rafa. Welcome, married to our Commodore, all of the Nisham Sad Rabia, the families and the Chama, all of those who need the first time of the Kol Chol Yitzhak, the 12, Shemina to Shem home, all of our hostages, the Shalom and the Karab, and our holy soldiers should be successful. The Chol Masih. What's with that? Let us begin about with the last week. Take some really incredible Gemara ahead of us. Today we found in Ayin Vav 76, and we are picking up actually on Ayin Vav. We left off Ima, which is on 76A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down from the top. Last word on the line. So just remember again, we were introduced over here to the topic of streifa. Again, which types of relationships are punishable by streifa? And by the way, you've seen already the common denominator, the types of infractions punishable by streifa, some again are infractions which do with immorality, which is the common denominator, everything we're doing over here. Remember again, this is only a few that explicitly speaks about two relationships. a man marrying a white woman and her mother, or a woman and her daughter. So now we're building out the framework from there. So the Gemara says as follows: I mahu kalas asura, afi kalas asura. So we should say that just as a man is prohibited to his son's wife, so too he should be prohibited biblically to his wife's son's wife. So the Gemara is right. In other words, the same way that he's prohibited to his daughter-in-law, his direct daughter-in-law through his son, he should be prohibited to his daughter-in-law through her son. To which the Gemara says, Rabbi, Amaswa, Eshes bin Chobi. I'm sorry, Eshes bin Chobi. The Apostle prohibited to his daughter-in-law. Why? Because she is the wife of his son. One is chayiv ultimately again because a woman is the wife of his son, but not chayiv because she is the wife of his wife's son. So just you see what we're doing over here? We're just trying to kind of figure out parallel relationships. So we know that a man is prohibited to his daughter-in-law. What's the definition of a daughter-in-law? Your son's wife. So that the Gemara said, okay, so why do we say the parallel relationship? Again, your wife's son's wife should also be asur too. Listen, I want to be clear. All of these relationships are asur. They're asur. The shaila is, are they asur d'Rabbanan or are they asur d'Oraisa? So your daughter-in-law through your son's wife is obviously asur d'Oraisa. So the shaila is your wife's son's daughter, your wife's son's wife also asur d'Oraisa? First commercial to say no, as the passage says, Isha is given. Rabbi says, Benuman don't go mina, Benuman don't go mina, V'oki Basra, no Asra. So Rabbi says like this: the truth is, this goes back to yesterday's stuff. Remember, again, we have fundamental focus in general. How do you darshan Gzeira Shabbos? How do you darshan Gzeira Shabbos? Do we say don't mina or mina, which means again about saying remember that the target of the Gzeira Shabbos, I should say, the defining definition of the Gzeira Shabbos comes from the source item, or no? Don't mina v'uki ba'asra means ultimately the result will be far because we really focus is on the destination of the Gzeira Shabbos, the second half of the Gzeira Shabbos. We'll see inside in just a moment. With yours, the Rabbi says in reality, Ein leman don't mina or mina, Ein leman don't mina v'uki ba'asra v'has. Anyway, Rabbi says the truth is, you can't really learn out this prohibition ultimately of wife's son's wife. Why? Whereas the man don't mina or mina. So what it says ultimately, I will learn Gzeira Shabbos, focus on the initial halacha, and that really determines the defining characteristics and qualities. So he said this: Mahu kalas asura. Just doesn't matter. So let's just go as a typical case, right? Ruben's married to Rachel. And so remember again, Ruben's kala. Who says kala? His kala is his daughter-in-law. Right? So remember again, his son's wife. Mahu kalas asura. Just as Ruben, his daughter-in-law is asura to him. After married kalas asura. So we should say so too. Rachel's son's wife should also be prohibited to Ruben. The Gemara says if that's the case, Mahu b'skila, Afinam b'skila. So we should say the same way if Ruben has relations with his daughter-in-law, i.e. his son's wife, that is b'skila. So too again, if he has relations with his wife's son's wife, his daughter-in-law through his wife, it should also be punished by skila. So the Gemara says, okay, the man do amar skila chamura ikor micha. According to the opinion that says that skila is the most common form of death penalty. There's a problem. What's the problem? We'll say first wide line, Ayin Vav Amud 76a. What's the problem? Magu Shikim Imo Skila. Again, I want to say for Ruben himself. So remember again, relationship with his mother punished by skila. Tomar Behi Shikima B'Sveifa. So the problem was they say, see, the relationships don't line up. Right? Remember that again, we're trying to create a certain symmetry. And granted, it's an immoral symmetry, but it's a symmetry nevertheless between immoral relationships are this side versus her side. So we're trying to line up essentially to say that just like he can't have relations with Gorma, i.e. his son's wife, so again on his wife's side, he also is credited to his wife's son's wife. The problem just is, we see that the symmetry doesn't line up. Why not? Take a look at mother for just a moment. If he has relations with his mother, it's Skiza. If he has relations with her mother, it's Tzrifa. It's Tzrifa, right? That's one of the explicit sweeping that we saw yesterday, is that you can't go ahead and marry, have relations with a woman and her mother. It's part of a Tzrifa. So you see that the symmetry doesn't line up. Come on, usually the Tzrifa, follow furthermore, second white line, follow, beat up the Tzrifa, the Kalasa, the Skila. Furthermore, again, if this construct would remain true, it means that if we're going to have relations with Rachel's daughter, in connection by Sreifa, again, that's an explicit pasuk, a woman and her daughter, that's Sreifa, and yet, again, Kalasa, according to this logic, if you were to have relations with Rachel's son's wife, i.e. his daughter through his wife, it would be by Skila. So again, just the punishments don't seem to line up. Which Gemara says it's not a problem. The truth is that's not such a kasha. Why? The beat up is of the kalas and skila. We already see that the punishments are asymmetrical. Why? Because if we're going to have relations with his daughter, it's straight thought, and yet to get into relations with his daughter-in-law, meaning his son's wife, ultimately that is skila. The issue just is that, at least from Lane's perspective, what's symmetrical is the prohibition a generation above and a generation below, right? So in other words, for example, his mother and his daughter-in-law from his son are symmetrical. They're both the straight up. So just like for Reuben himself, again, it was remember we saw yesterday that so much of what we're doing in these forbidden relationships is creating continuity in generations above and generations below. So when you look from Reuben's perspective, so again, son's wife, the punishments are the same. So again, really on her side, it should be the same thing. You should say that it should be the same punishment because Reuben has relations with Rachel's mother, or Rachel's daughter-in-law through her son. The Gemara says, according to the that says that Shreif is more chomer. Ultimately, again, based on this question, we would not be able to capture this entire thing. Okay, so the Gemara says that's the first side of this. The second side of this, and according to again, this whole love construct. So remember, just to keep our eye on the ball over here. So remember, we're trying to figure out over here, the Mars trying to make a suggestion that just as Reuben is not allowed to have relations with his daughter-in-law, in other words, the daughter-in-law is defined by his son's wife. Reuben wants to suggest that there should be a symmetrical prohibition to his wife's son's wife. His daughter-in-law through his wife. The Gemara suggested that the Rabbi is saying the truth is, whichever way you dash in Xer Shabbat, it's not going to work. This female is not going to work. So, for example, non-Damar, don't mean no go keep balance. So again, according to the opinion that action is called by saying that literally, again, the defining characteristics ultimately of the Xer Shabbat are going to be defined by what we call the destination of the Xer Shabbat. So it's like this: Mahu Kalas Asura, just as Reuben, right? Reuben is going on relations with his son's wife. Api Kalasasura. So we should say the same thing. He can't have relations with Rachel's son's wife. Roki Ba'asura. So the Gemara says, okay, then let's focus on the destination of like Zerushalah. Possibly with the skila. So remember again, if Reuben were to have relations with Rachel's son's wife, that would be skila. That would be skila. Aval b'sreifa. But over here, if he were to have relations with his own daughter-in-law, i.e. his son's wife, that's sreifa. as we find with his mother. Because we also remember again, on Reuben's side, things are symmetrical. Because remember, if Reuben has relations with his mother, generation up, or has relations with his daughter-in-law, generation down, same punishment, streifa. Streifa. The Gemara says, Laman Amar, Skila Chamura, Delifra. So according to the king that says that Skila is more Chamur, we could ask the following question. Right? So when it comes to the right, so with his mother will be Skila, Kamar Bihi, she Ima B'Streifa. Yeah, with her, with Rachel's mother will be B'Streifa. Vod, Mahu Chalak the bow, Bein Bito La Kalasa, Afi Taflo Bein Bito La Kalasa. So you say the same way that there's a distinction in the prohibition for Ruvain between his daughter and his daughter-in-law. So on Rachel's side, there should be a distinction between his daughter and daughter-in-law. According to the opinion that says that Sreifa ultimately is more common than Skila, and I push you no need to from this based on this question we can't darshan the proper halacha. So therefore I will say interestingly enough, the Gemara does not seem to be able to prove this idea. Let's remember, what's the idea the Gemara wanted to do? The Gemara wanted to say that the same that Ruvain's daughter-in-law from his son, right? His son's wife is controlled by Sreifa. So too, again, his daughter-in-law through his wife. Ruvain's daughter-in-law, i.e., his son's wife. His son's wife is controlled by Sreifa. So there should be a parallel prohibition that is should also be controlled by Sreifa. So again, both of Abai and Rava agree that is not halacha. Abai says it based on a Rava says either way, the Gzeir Shava is not going to work. Gzeir Shava doesn't pan out. Okay, so the Gemara asks, what's this? Once again, it doesn't mean it's prohibited. It's still awesome. It just means the Gemara is suggesting that it may not be a prohibition of Sreifa. Okay, so the Gemara goes like that. The Gemara says, Bitam and Asas Minayim. Let's see an interesting case. What happens if Ruvain violates Rachel? He violates her, and then what happens? He violates her, and they have a daughter. So how do I know that halach l'meis shabbat by Sreifa? That's called Bitom Anasaso. So his daughter, as a result of being violated. Meaning, how do we know that such a relationship like that is punishable by Sreifa? First, the Gemara says, "I'm not buying kavachomer. It's kavachomer." What's the kavachomer? Albas bito anush al bito latoshakim tatius. If Lanaisa, Ruvain is held liable for relations with his granddaughter, Bas bito, then what? Allah has come all the more so, he is held accountable for relations with his daughter, even if that daughter ultimately again is the result of a violation, of violating her mother. So the Gemara says, so if he owns you can't do that. You can't create, once you have this concept, that you can't create kavachomas through you can't create capital punishment through a kavachomer. Capital punishment has to be understood directly. So the Gemara says, no, you're right. Give me no, it's not really a kavachomer. This is obvious. The Torah holds a man accountable for relations with his daughter. It's punished by Sreifa. It doesn't really make a difference how this woman is his daughter, whether she's his daughter from a legitimate marriage or whether she's his daughter because he violated her mother. Either way, a daughter is a daughter, and therefore there's going to be liability for relations with her. Incredible. Rava says, Amali Yitzchak Baratimi, Asya Heina Hina, Asya Zima Zima. Okay, Rava on the other hand disagrees. And Rava learns that from a double Gzeir Shava of Heina Heina Zima Zima. Okay, Tani Avua de Rabbi Abin, the fish Shalom Lavanu, the Pita Manasasu, Chutzrach HaKasav Lomar, Ubas Ish Kohen. Let's listen to this. So the Gemara says, because we do not learn out, right? We don't have an explicit drasha. There's no explicit passage that says that if a man has relations with his daughter, who he fathered through violating her mother, that if he has relations with her, he is chayiv sreifa. Because there's no explicit pasuk that says that. Chutzrach HaKasav Lomar, the pasuk needs to say, Ubas Ish Kohen. So the Gemara says, Ima Bas Kohen Ibis Sreifa, They ball of a sweefa. So this was this. Remember, the pasuk over here is talking about a bas ish kohen, right? So again, this is the daughter of a kohen who commits znus. So we had this sugya a while back. Is this talking about irisin? Is it talking about irisin? So the pashtus is talking about an arusa, right? And if a bas kohen who is an arusa commits adultery, the halacha is she is judged with srefa. Not just a unique halacha. So Gemara says, "Ima bas kohen he b'sreifa being all of the sreifas." Now, bas kohen, she herself is judged with srefa, but what makes it interesting enough, the man with whom she commits adultery is not judged with sreifa. So to again, the daughter that he has from violating her mother, he is sreifa, she is judged with sreifa, ve'im ba'al of the sreifa. But ultimately, again, the man with whom she commits adultery is not judged with sreifa. I'm not by it says, the pasuk says, as aviha, she mechaleles. She's profaning her father. Yishu mechaleles as aviha. So who is judged with sreifa? One who profanes her father. Yotzes azu she'aviha mechallah. This would come to exclude one, not the girl who's profaning her father, but rather what? It's her father who's profaning her. Rava says, Bishlam achasam afiksi midin bas kohen. But ukimta adina bas Yisrael. So okay. In that case, you could say the girl is being removed from the typical case of a bas kohen, and she's being judged in accordance with the standards of the typical bas Yisrael. Hacha adina deman muknesla, adina de pnuya muknesla. Here in the case of Bita Manasaso. So again, when the daughter of a woman who we violated, so again, where are you going to put her? Right, you're going to put her in the category to regular single woman. That doesn't make any sense. So we'll say, therefore again, the Gemara learns that, but Allah myself, just as a man is chayiv sreifa for violating his daughter, for having relations with his daughter, so too, a man is chayiv for relations with his daughter, even if she is the daughter of a woman whom he violated. That's the same thing. As hardly become an assessment. Where's the love? Where's the love? Let's remember again, as we see the way the Torah is structured is, in order to hold someone liable in a capital case, there needs to be two things. There needs to be a lav, right? And also, there needs to be a prohibition, and there needs to be an orange. So where's the lav? Where's the lav? As hardly become an assessment. So going to buy Rabbi, the Hechad Binafkulu Onesh, they also Nafkulas. So going to buy Rabbi, the same pasuk that teaches us the punishment is the very same pasuk that teaches us the law. Elo, the Tani Dabod Rabbi Abin. I will say, what about the time of Rabbi Abin? Where is he from? Rabbi Loy, Amakro, Altacheller as Bitro, that has no son. Pasuk says, do not profane your daughter and have her commit an act of immorality, or literally again, it's literally translated, do not profane your daughter that has no son, have her become a harlot. So we'll say, so again, that pasuk is going to teach us that a father can't have relations with his daughter, even if that daughter is not from a legitimate marriage, but even if that daughter herself is from a woman whom he violated. Okay, incredible. So I'm asking Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yaakov, high out the fellow is in Chalaz for something else. In other words, so now, look what's happening over here. We're trying to figure out, right? We've established that if a man violates of his daughter, who he fathered with a woman whom he violated, he is chayiv straight up. Where's the lav? So according to Rabbi and Rabbi, the lav is the same source as the actual owners. Okay. According to the other opinions, plus the lav is in the pasuk of Atachalal as Bitchala has no son. Do not profane your daughter by having her engage in acts of harlotry. What's the harlotry over here? What's this relations with her father? So Shemar says, well, hold up. We use that pasuk for something totally different. That's like totally different. We use that pasuk for something totally different. So the Gemara says, "Hi, no, we actually need that pasuk for something dramatically different. What do we need? Here we go with the Lisanya. As we learned, has no son. Do not have your daughter engage in an act of harlotry. Listen to this. Yaakov B'Kohen, Hamasi is Bito Israel, so we'll say this is fascinating. One might have thought that the pasuk is actually talking about that a Kohen is not allowed to have his daughter marry a lady or a Yisrael. Wow, right? That's about the preservation of yichus. Then maybe again to preserve proper yichus, a bas Kohen should only marry a Kohen, and marrying a lady or a Yisrael, the chas v'shalom be like an act of harlotry, to which the Gemara says, Tamalomar has no son. Therefore, the pasuk says the father should not give it to Rabbi has no son. The chilo should is no sakasa. We're talking about the idea that it's not the Gemara's understanding over here. That Allah Chalamai says giving your daughter over into a context where ultimately again she's going to be engaged in znus. So what does this refer to? The Moser as bito l'shalom l'shem issues. Giving over one's daughter, not for the sake of marriage. Not for the sake of marriage. The Allah again, so it's the prohibition upon a father to give his daughter over to a man, not in the context of marriage, but for some immoral purposes, to which the Gemara says, Im came, lemakra al tachel. If that's the case, let the pasuk just say al tachel, singular, or to a non-marital context. My what does the plural mean? It's going to teach me two things. So number one, you can't go ahead and give your daughter over to a man in a non-marriage context. And also number two, it also teaches me that what? A father can't have relations with his daughter even if he fathered her by violating her mother, because such an act of relations would be an act of profanation. Right? It would be an act of profanity. That's the halacha. Okay. So the Gemara says, it's actually fascinating. There's a little bit of detail over here. Abai and Rabbi, they learned that Bitom and Sasso from a totally different source, right? They learned that Bitom and Sasso from the same place where they derived the Onesh. So that's what Rabbi and Rabbi do with this pasuk. It's very interesting. So Rabbi and Rabbi are fascinating. I'm running Zeh Hamasi es Bitom Zakin. Fascinating. This refers to someone who marries off his daughter to an older man. What's wrong with marrying off your daughter to an older man? Do not profane your daughter by giving her over to immorality. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Zahamasi es Bito Lizakin. This refers to someone who goes ahead and marries off his daughter to an older man. Now, what's the concern? We're going to deal with Rashi. She says, Masi Bito Lizakin. It says from the bottom. When we talk Sheina Mekablaso, Nizana Alavu. What's the concern over here? If she's very young and he's very old, what's the issue? What she's going to be is she's going to have a desire for intimacy. He's not going to have a desire for intimacy. So what's going to happen? She is going to seek fulfillment outside of her marriage. So you're setting up a situation that is destined to put her in a very precarious state. So therefore, again, Torah says when marrying off your daughter, do not put her in a situation where she's going to commit suicide. It's fascinating. Just the Torah understands human nature, obviously, which God created us. The Torah understands that people crave intimacy. And if they can't find it in the context of their marriage, just the way it's going to work is they're going to look for it elsewhere. Again, Torah obviously is not condoning that type of behavior, but the Torah is understanding that that is the way people work. So therefore, again, Torah is telling the father, do not marry your daughter off to an older man, because if you do that, you are setting, almost as I used to see that, you are setting it up, ultimately you're going to seek that intimacy outside of the permitted confines of the marriage. So Rabbi Kiva differently. Give Omer, Zahamasha es Bito Bogeres. Fascinating. This refers to someone who delayed marrying off his daughter until she's a Bogeres. The idea is she married off your children early, And if a father purposely delays marrying off his children, that's ultimately again setting her aside for a life of business. So this is very interesting. Rashi here as well. Actually, Masha Bito Bogeres. Actually, sorry, not yet. Not yet. Actually, take a look. 2 lines up from the bottom. Zah Masha Bito Bogeres. So it's actually a fascinating girsa here in Rashi. Rashi says, Shenisava lahafkira umizana. So let's say, so the wording in Rashi itself is very serious. What does it mean? Shenisava means desires lahafkira, to make her hefker umizana, and therefore she commits znus. What does that mean? So if you look, by the way, at the goes, it's Siyunim. They change it by the letter Pei. Quotes to Rashash, who says Rashash Magia Lahafkidah. Rasha Lipkida Sa. So let's say, as we're going to see on the base a little bit, it's fascinating. Why would a father delay marrying off his daughter? Because, listen to this, from the Gemara's perspective, when there's a daughter in the house, the father has free domestic help. Free domestic help. If he goes ahead and he marries off his daughter, what happens? So now he's got to go ahead and pay for domestic help. He delays marrying off for his own benefit. When a father does that, so it's interesting from the mother's perspective, what that's also going to do is set her up constantly for this. She's going to crave that intimacy, going to crave that closeness, and therefore he's setting her up for Zinus. We'll see more about that in just a moment. So the Gemara says, Amrav Khan, we show Rabbi Akiva, it's the last two lines on, so she's going to find that from the same pasuk, right? So Al-Tachala is Bitchala has no self. Do not profane your daughter by putting her into a life of Zinus. What does it mean? So first opinion, it means don't marry your daughter off to a much older man, because again, their drives are not aligned. And she's going to see women outside of the context of marriage. Rabbi Akiva, don't delay marrying off your daughter for your own purposes, because you're going to drive her to Zinus. Incredible. I'm not kind of Rabbi Akiva. Listen to this. Ella Rasha Arum, Lahamasha Ita Bogeres. What's this fascinating? There is no poor person in Klal Yisrael who is not a Rasha Arum, a cunning evildoer, right? A cunning Rasha, or someone who delays his daughter from getting married. So the Gemara says, Amasha Ita Bogeres, what does this mean? This doesn't mean every single poor person is a cunning Russia. What it means is every cunning Russia ultimately becomes an onion, becomes impoverished. Just like every single man who delays marrying off his daughter for his own purposes ultimately becomes impoverished. Why? So Gemara says, you won't clear just a moment. Gemara says, Atu, Hamasha Bito against Abash Arinu. Understand, the guy who delays marrying off his daughter, isn't he a cunning Russia? In other words, we'll say, what are you talking about here? We're talking about a guy, father, I haven't found that actually different. But actually, my daughter's son. Meanwhile, he's purposely delaying her prospects. Why? Because he wants to go ahead and halacha l'maisa suit his own needs. That's what's happening over here. That's what's driving all of this. Is that not the cunning Russia? Rabbi was Rabbi Hagim was used to say, Ezuhu ani Russia aru. What's an example of a person who is a cunning Russia who's going to be impoverished? Zeh hamasha bita bogel. This ultimately is someone who intentionally delays marrying off his daughter to go ahead and satisfy his needs. So let's say, just want to point out just what does this mean? Is someone who delays marrying off his own daughter, right, is going to go and become honey, or someone who's a cunning rush is going to become an honey? What's the chapter? What's coming Coming down later is putting your own need before the need for you. And so the father goes ahead and says, you know what, I don't want to marry my daughter. My daughter's ready to get married. I don't want to marry her off here because, again, it doesn't suit my needs. It doesn't suit my needs. So it's like, that's cunning need for your child. Who is the cunning Russia? The cunning Russia is a person, as we'll see in just a moment, is a person who puts his own needs in front of other people's needs. So it's like, so a person who prioritizes his needs over other people's needs. there's a cosmic justice in the world. Trump says you're putting your own agenda of self-advancement in front of your own child, in front of other people. What ends up happening to such a person? What ends up happening? You become impoverished. You become poor, maybe not immediately, but over time. Why? Because that's not how the Baruch Hu wants to be. The devotion does not want us to be self-serving. This is incredibly important in general. First of all, there's a tremendous parenting lesson that's involved here. A lot of needs before our children's needs. Right? We have this vision for our children about what we want them to become. Right? And I need them to be educated like this. I want them professionally to do this. And they can't get married until they reach this threshold or this or this or that. Now, by the way, sometimes that's great. But sometimes what we don't realize is that's not what my kid needs. That's what I need. That's what I need. And that's selfish behavior. That's putting your own needs before your child's needs. I think it's one of the hardest things I have to figure out. Like, am I taking these positions because they're actually better for my child? Or am I taking these positions because they are actually better for me? And it's hard because a lot of times our own needs and our children's needs tend to become intertwined with intertwined. One of the things we have to be so careful about in parenting is making sure, listen, one of the greatest ways to harness in parenting, one of the greatest ways of parenting is often as parenting we think like our kids represent a do-over for ourselves, right? Everything that I did wrong in life, I'm going to get right through my kids. Well, that's fine, but your kid's not you. And your kid didn't sign up to become a better version of you. My child is someone different, fundamentally different than me, with different purpose, different abilities, and a different destiny. So you have to be so careful. I see it's one of my parents like have these incredible, beautiful dreams, which are so beautiful. Only issue is they never check with the kid whether or not that's what the kid wants to do. Does the kid want to go down this path? Does the kid want this kind of career? Does the kid want this kind of education? Does the kid want this kind of career? This is what the kid's going to do. You just never check with the child. That's putting parental desires and life objectives before the child, and that has up. I'll say is fundamentally selfish. And when you're selfish in life, just understand it never works out. The Rasha Arum puts his own needs before the needs of others. You can try that, and you may be successful in the short term, but in the long term, ultimately, you become impoverished. The lesson that is so imperative is make sure that the decisions you're making are the ones that are good for your child, and not the ones that simply benefit you. Incredible. All right, let's go back there. So the Rabbi says, kind of following up on what the Gemara says. Be careful about getting advice from someone who is only giving you advice ultimately again because it benefits them. That's how you ROTHSCHILD. Someone gives you Eitzah, you feed their code. According to the Shabbos, so this is an incredible caveat. Like, what does the Rasha Arum do? The Rasha Arum is not someone who's just stuffing chazir into your mouth. The Rasha Arum is a person very often who will be giving you advice, and it may not be even the worst advice for you, but it's not the best advice for you. But you know who is the best advice for? For him. For him. And the same idea, sometimes we'd rather even realize we give. The freedom we give to our children, or the advice we give to our children, is the advice that benefits us, benefits me as the parent, not that thought that benefits my child. So what says Rabbi Akiva is kind of a follow-up. Be careful with someone who gives you advice in accordance with their diagnosis. By the way, it's also important to hear this from Rabbi Akiva. Right? Remember again, Rabbi Akiva knows what it's like to get advice from different people. Because in Rabbi Akiva's life, there are two different groups of people. Really just one group within one person. There was one group of Rabbi Akiva who constantly actually told him, you will never amount to anything more than a shepherd. That's what you were. That's what you will be. Just be the best shepherds. And those are people. And Rabbi Akiva had one person who whispered in his ear, and one person happened to be his wife, Rachel. Right? And Rachel told him, you can do whatever you want to do. Right? You want to become the whole brother, and you want to become the best of the best. You can do that. You can do that. So the Akiva essentially says, just be careful who you get advice It's because had I listened to the majority of people who were whispering in my ear, I would have been a very good shepherd. Very good shepherd. And that's it. The Baruch Hashem, I took advice from someone who wasn't self-serving, but rather I took advice from someone who really and truly cared about me. And as a result, Rabbi Akiva became Rabbi Akiva. Incredible, incredible. I'm Rabbi Yehuda. I'm Rav. I'm asking people, okay, and the person goes and married, listen back to this. A man marries up in front to a much older man. Masi Isha with no katan. Or, the reverse is, a man marries a woman to his minor son. Remember, as we spoke about, minor son is not the kid who loved less, right? A minor son represents, again, a child. So he's married off again, an adult woman to his minor son. She will say, remember again, come run with it. Again, they're going to be unfulfilling marriages, right? First, his brother's married to much older man, they don't have the same drive. Again, the second, his son, who's a child, is married to a woman, not don't have the same drive. Well, listen to this. If someone who goes out of his way to return a lost object to a non-Jew. What's the Gemara says? Allah Kasimomer, about such a person, the Pasuk says, L'man Safos Harava Asat Smaya, Lo Yova Hashem Saloachlo. They must say that the way the Pasuk touches last time, the way that the Gemara is understood in this Pasuk over here, which is really quite profound. L'man Safos Harava Asat Smaya means that, look at Rashi. Rashi says, L'man Safos Livkot. Rashi understands Safos means now what's being connected over here? Rashi says, last one line in Rashi on this out, Reverse had Smeya, Sabeh B'Davar, in Someh B'Davar. Zakri B'Yaz, Zok Smeya Pashmish, Zakri Zeh Yad Kata. So listen to this. According to the Marjan saying as follows: you can't connect someone who is thirsty with someone who is sated and expect them to go ahead and complement each other. So another word for the idea over here is, right? So the young woman is thirsty. She wants intimacy. The older man is sated. The young boy is sated. The woman is thirsty. It doesn't work. It doesn't work to pair up someone who is thirsty with someone who is sated, because halacha l'maisa again, it doesn't work. I must say, by the way, it happens to be that this is a profound so not just by intimacy, but also by marriage. In order to have true shalom bibles, in order to have true growth in a marriage, both parties in marriage has to want growth. Right? The worst thing that can happen is when a wife becomes her husband's mashkiach. Right? If a wife is keeping her husband out of bed in the morning, get up this year, that's a disaster. That's a disaster. The same way the husband is telling his wife, you need to become a Chatzos lady. You need to be starting Shabbos, you need to be ready for Shabbos at midday on Friday. That's what. What's the recipe for success? Both have to be thirsty. Both have to be thirsty. Husband has to be thirsty for growth. A wife has to be thirsty for growth. That's a successful marriage. If one is thirsty and one is sated, it's very difficult. Very difficult, because one is always going to be pushing, one is always going to be wanting, and the other one ultimately is going to become resentful. If both are thirsty, then that's the recipe for success. If both are sated, then what? Utter disaster. Because if both are sated, that represents a life of complacency, a life of mediocrity. Both are thirsty, ridiculous success. Both are sated, abysmal failure. One is thirsty, one is sated. A lot of shalom issues. What about the Matzah Bigel Kusi? What's wrong with going ahead? What's wrong with going ahead and returning a lost object to a non-Jew? I don't know, that sounds like a nice thing. What's wrong with that? So let's look at Rashi. Rashi says that Matzah Bigel Kusi, Hishva Hibar Kusi Yisrael. Umara ba'asmo sha'shavas avei de'enek shavas. It's incredible. He said, of course, you should return lost objects to non-Jews. That's what we're saying. We're saying is like this: that a person who thinks that returning a lost object to a non-Jew is just as important as the mitzvah of Shabbat, that's wrong. That's wrong. As we'll say, we're going to say something that is incredibly politically incorrect, which is Jews and non-Jews are not the same. we're not the same. And we should not interact with each other as if we are the same. We have to have respect for all of humanity. We have to treat all of humanity with dignity. So but there is a different level of interaction and a different level of devotion that we must have to each other. And I will say we don't have to be apologetic about saying it. For one simple reason. No one looks out for us except us. And no one has our back except us. And I will say, for so many of us, our senses were dulled to this. Right? We thought again after the Holocaust, never again. Everybody loves us. Anti-Semitism is not what it used to be. And then October 7th happened, and we realized the world is the same exact world that it has been for thousands of years. And give the world a chance to annihilate the Jews, and they'll take it. And give the world a chance to go ahead and turn into anti-Semitic lynch mobs, and they'll do it. And it doesn't matter what country it is, and even as great as this home is to us, the anti-Semitism is rampant, and it teaches us one simple lesson: circle the wagons, look out for each other, because no one else is going to look out for us but us. So if you're one of those kumbaya, right, and tikkun olam, and everything else, and we're one big community of humanity, you're a fool. We're not one big community of humanity. We're not. There's us, and there's them. And that's the way the world works. Now, when Mashiach comes, and Eretz Hashem, that'll change. And when Mashiach comes, it will be v'yasu kulam adu v'achos. Humanity will become one. But until that day, humanity is not one. There's Klal Yisrael, and there's everyone else. It's Am Levadad Yishkon. We are alone in this world. And again, the beautiful part is we're alone as a nation. We're not alone as individuals, because we have each other. And we always have each other. And this is what the Gemara says. If you think just like if you go to Shabbos Aveda, unity of mankind. Right? The Gemara says, there's not one day there will be a community of mankind. And I want to say again, to be clear, the obligation of dignity, the obligation of respect for every single person. But just understand that there is a different system of conduct, a different system of allegiance, and a different system of commitment. That we have that one another because all we have is each other. We have no one else but each other. And the moment we get that, it's the moment we put ourselves in overwhelmingly precarious situation. That should you return a lost object to a pussy? Of course you should. If you get extra change at the supermarket, should you return the extra change? 1,000 yourself. Yes. And don't tell us after you get this account, you get extra money, right? You fine. You be a proper human being. But just understand that there's a difference between that and the mitzvah of Hashem Basavidu, which represents the interpersonal contract that we have with one another. Incredible. You know, it's amazing. There's a kasha. A man who loves his wife like his own body, and one who gives you covet more than us. You hear this? You have to love your wife like yourself, right? You have to honor her more than yourself. And what does that mean? Why doesn't it say you have to get so what does this mean? First of all, why don't you say love your wife more than yourself? What's the simple answer? Because you can't. It's important to say. Right? Let's say the framework of love that I have more than anything is myself. In other words, the strongest reflex we have in ourselves is self-preservation. Right? Because deep down, like the most important, we're very essential beings. So the Gemara says, if you could love your wife as much as you love yourself, that's godless. That's godless. Now, what does it mean to be mechabed? Now, because love is an emotion. So from an emotional perspective, you can feel that sense of love to your wife. And you can feel you care about her as much as you care about yourself. That's fantastic. The covet is our physical behaviors. Right? So then when it comes to physical behaviors, then you have to do more for your wife than what you do for yourself. And I will say, that's on a very very ritual level. So again, so you for yourself, you get a present on your birthday. So you're actually going to get a present on your birthday, which is you get a present multiple other times. In other words, whatever cover you take for yourself. If you like certain new things, whatever you like, make sure that your wife has something more than that. Because covet is physically measurable. So avo, which is an emotion, Chazal felt if you could care about your wife as much as you care about yourself, that's fantastic. But covet that you give, that's behavioral. The covet you give to your wife has to surpass the covet you give for yourself. You would walk for yourself. Now, not just one of the notes of Rabbi Shara. I was saying again, this is so beautiful. And one who leads his children in a proper path. So listen, he's capturing these gemaras that he spent a week on these gemaras. What does it mean, magic? What does it mean, magic? What does it mean? What's the magic? What's the magic? God. What does the guy do? Shows you the way. Leads. Right? What's it? The most annoying guys? Most annoying guys are the ones who talk too much. You're like, just be quiet and move. Right? Talk, right? Same thing with parenting. Effective parenting. Much less talking, much more doing. Be a mattress. Don't tell your kids what to do. Don't tell your kids what to do. Show them what to do. It's like, I'm talking to anyone, I'm talking to everyone. Right? This is a motivated group. Whether your kids are asleep or not asleep, you think they don't know on some level to waking up early, to come to shul, to learn God and Sinner, Shemosu Nefesh, keeping up sleep is true. We joke about it, but it's tremendous stress nefesh. None of us are going to sleep at 8 o'clock at night. We're dealing with a normal night's sleep, getting up at 5 o'clock. Imagine. It's all about the hadracha. You can say whatever you want. You can say nice words to people. You can sing shemiras. You can do all that stuff. It's very nice. It's very beautiful. All important. The most important thing is how you lead. What is the example that you set? And if you really want to define an example on a derech yishara, that's better. It's incredible. I'm a serious someone for Kirka. Marry them off early. That will say, someone for Kirka. Someone for Kirka means a little bit before they reach adulthood. Right? Which again, today's day and age is about 25, right? So nice, right? So marry them off a little bit before they reach adulthood. I love Akasim Omer. So that's such a person. See, it's four ingredients over here. Number one, love your wife as much as you love yourself. You reach out to people like this, I love my wife more than I love myself. I love my kid. Chazal said, calm down. Right? If you could love your wife as much as you love yourself, that's an accomplishment. Right? Love her as much as you love yourself. Number two, but give her more cover, which is behavioral stuff. Give her more cover than the cover you take for yourself. Number three, don't tell your kids what to do, but be a mattress. Be a good guy. Be a good leader. Show them what to do. And number four, marry your children off a little bit before adulthood. That goes into the pasuk says, you show them all that talk, the character of that talk, the little tactile. Pasuk says, no, that everyone is going to be ceasing repent. Right? Your home will be remembered for good, and ultimately, again, you will not come to sin. So, what's this about? Why is all of this brought down? Because again, we just saw before, you know, you shouldn't marry up before adulthood. So what's happening? The Gemara says, no, it's not a kasha. It's not a kasha. The Gemara says, someone put me up for a shine. No. Ultimately, again, this is literally talking about right before they reach the age of adulthood. So again, they're on the cusp of adulthood. So the nice again, that's not a big deal. Speaking about not marrying each other, that's not really still incredible. And we'll stop here for today. We're fine. Tomorrow's a very short time. Kind of short time. Was that tremendous way to start the week?
A wolf loses his hair but not his nature. A leopard cannot change his spots. Dash as long as you're healthy. Responsibility. AFN only friend dogs hit him. He thinks everyone knows he committed a crime. Thieves have bronze. If Mir just doesn't. Dash, I wish it could be said about me. Source, in trouble. Afyan Mustakas has got some action. Someone else's ass is easy to smack. So much is spiteful, lit, just to get someone angry. Anti-watched, disappointed. Causes Perna, ambient failure. A. Culture or finicky. A. Judgkin, delicately brought up.
Nowadays to stand up and
A. Son-in-law.
Good morning.
8. Advice. A. Retelled, absent-minded, mixed up.
very exciting. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Alekum Shalom, GVPs,
Good morning.
used in response to the creation Shalom Aleichem.
We're in Northern California.
Aleph Beth, alphabet, the first 2 letters of the Jewish alphabet.
All learning together.
Dash
And
into
by
that.
thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's share. We thank our annual commentary sponsor of Touch Tosi Shpapa, the dedicated all the Shulman Drushas this year, wishing a Mazel Tov to Yeshua Melech HaTesim on the intro to our meet calling it Mazel Tov and Mazel Tov. Our commentary sponsors for the month of Adar, Haba Avinu Tova, Terry and Steve Zinn, Lamar Terry's father, Dr. Harry Karen, Steve Hirsch, Ben Yosef Hakori, Peter Levine and Bernie Fallon's Rabbi of Williamsburg, Zev Shmuel and Yisrael, our radio sponsors, Maya Hoffman, and the first of Avram Ben Yadina, Shulman, Boss, Ben Yadina, Baruch, Kara, Nara, and Ben Shulamis. May we all have health and Hatzlacha. Beautiful. From this moment today, Aaron Wiseman, and then we have his father-in-law, Charles Wheeler, and Zechariah Ben Yisrael, Steve Rabbi, and Ali Rothschild, in honor of the Rudy girl, to Zazi and Michelle Rothschild, Mazel Tov to Zazi's grandparents, China Rothschild, and his sister Laura Moshe, and Yardina Garden, and family. Mazel Tov. She was representing the sales coverage for Cloud Yisrael. For those who don't, that is the great back to Iron Hair. I apologize in advance, we have to only shoot a few minutes for you, but we're thank you. I wasn't planning, I just wanted to about it when you were planning. Thank you. Let's step over there, pack it a lot. We're actually also going to start from the top of Iron Hair. My son up and did cheers for a great job, actually very than most. I'm sorry? You did a good job. I keep getting you showing off, but when you see that the ends, with the face, you have to get from like, I'm doing on the face to the middle of Iron Hair and olive. So you're showing up the other end. It's okay. So just for the sake of the cover that wasn't going for the sake of having a completion partner as well, just going to start with $5 million. 75 days. I'm going to leave them up.
The third one goes to sleep. If 2 people confirm something, it's true. Husband, Dash
Nice to the other
is going to
Dash,
that's how it goes. It's baggage. Dash is so soon. His wafer does kitchen description. Dash that's how the cookie crumbles. You're eating everything vodka. Coffee cake, style pastry. Carry the third one masterpiece to a place. And the end of the meal, he announces the presents. Let's do the Bible present, the gift, and a humorous song. To bury. Insert the testicles. Pay tea. Persons that high standards. Now marriage. Quiet. Respectful. Well-behaved. GPI. Respect torturous. People of substance and
Once you look at something, it unleashes a certain concept going forward. So it's incredible how you can see over here just from what you're doing where the mistake was. Why works that way? Why not be careful with your ass and why not use it more than let's see what this is so incredibly well. But when I subscribe to see sometimes things go off the rails, and you're not exactly sure where it went off the rails. And then there are also times where I'm so abundantly clear where exactly things went off the rails. So yes, so yes, so you have to double-check and you're after that was value, and that's actually bought. And that's the second, this guy is non-step, the only possibility, the only authority you can have is if he has relations with this woman. Okay, and look up me. And so then we start to go, yes, we can't do that. Can't do that. So again, I'm going to say, so you can't just making the assumption over here that it must be some type of a wildness situation. So again, so Allah is the way of things that you have to soon give your life for. Then to go and transgress. So the doctor said, okay, I'm going to look one of our leaders. Okay, fine, yeah, that's our relations here. We just have to be able to see her and go. We can see her and go. So the Gemara says, when we start coming from our leaders, it comes to get kirtiyat. You can't do that. This is not how you play. So yes, it's just something you don't play together. So you don't talk with her. Okay, so you can't have a relationship with her. You can't see her unclothed. You don't talk with her. It's interesting. At this point, you actually already understood that there was a serious issue here. So it's like, she wanted these people to be face to face. I call her up better, but she could like give me a word between them. So you know what it says? Chazak the Rabbi said, "Let me see what the Sabbath is more play together." Or if you let him go, but let them not go ahead and have this conversation. Let's the shot. Let's forget about the conversation. Because remember again, context is everything. That's the context of this. The context of this was in an illicit, immoral urge. Not something of the OCD structure. So again, you know, this entire thing took on just an air of immorality about it. So the most important thing was so once it says marriage, so that makes a lot of sense. Every time you're married, you understand the incredible existence that the rabbis had to any level of interaction between this man and this woman. However, the problem realized that one of the things is she was single. She was single. So this one of my dumb she was in so consequently, she was married woman, shocking, but that's trying to make sense. I don't know if Leah herself might be right if she was single. I don't understand why this is actually, what is it exactly that's unfolding over here? So you must see the Papa on the shows to dominate Mishpacha. The Papa said ultimately again, because of the Mishpacha, now use the Mishpacha. Bash said the end should be Mishpacha. Ha'isha sha'anitoshi b'davar. English was a single woman, it would have been embarrassing for her family and reputationally that potentially damaging for her to go outside. There's no shift over. There's no shift over their imagination. Okay. I'm doing this, so just like trying to get you to react to it. It's really right. Okay. Got it. So it's shifted this way, right? Yeah, this is the right. Okay. Okay. So the answer is as follows. So the issue over here is that halakha l'maisa, there is if this girl would get engaged, even if she was single, if she would be engaged in this type of behavior, it could have significant reputational damage upon her and upon her mishpacha. Rabbi Yerika Amar, traditionally rules and things as lives. Rabbi Yerika, this is like setting an example. Let's set an example. Let's say, one of the things that we live this way, right? We live in this type of society. It seems to be the potential that we can just swing back the other way. But where there's no code of morality, and whatever you feel or however you identify, whatever you say that becomes the truth. When it's pure morality, there's no morality. That's the truth. And so Chazal and some rabbis in this case, and still over here, halakha l'maisa, you twist around this kind of piece of wall, even again, completely making the argument, try to let the guy speak to the woman from behind the wall. What is the deal over here? He's not going to see it, he's not going to but it's about what it represents. And what it represents is this guy becoming lustfully infatuated with a woman, and suddenly again, us catering to that desire. That is an illicit, immoral desire. And what do you do with illicit, immoral desires? What do you do with it? You shut it down. You don't cater to it. You don't pander to it. And you don't pretend that it's okay. Society, in order to preserve a system of morality, must have a clear delineation between what is wrong and what is right. And if that means that the guy's going to die, listen, you know what the reality is? The needs of the man
observances with the exception of Pesach,
always
Passover,
outweighs the needs of the
Jalash,
feast. That is the cloud together. Just because someone sees something or wants something doesn't mean that everyone else has to cater to it. There's a system, there's a society, there's a kind of conduct, and that has to preserve you, preserve at all costs. Even if it means the guy's going to die, the guy's going to die. So you guys says, there is some I said that it's far from what she's saying. So as much as you got to be everywhere, there you go. There you go, Rabbi. So the Gemara says, no. Mitzvah, let me ask the guy here. No, because if they get married, they're going to find out. In other words, if they get married, so then what's the point of all this? After the mitzvah, the Yom Shechar thinks of this. Mitzvah Tanviyah, the mitzvah of every Avila. The mitzvah said, listen, it's a fascinating statement. The reason it's interesting to show, mitzvah Tanviyah, which means the full pleasure of Biyah was the full pleasure of relations was removed and was only given over to sinful behavior. Now we're going to come up to what that means in just a moment. Shena Emad, Maimon Gemuvin Mutaku, Alechem Stagnai. Again, literally, stolen waters are sweeter and hidden bread is more pleasant. So that's the idea. Because part of what's really this lost is that it could be better. That's part of what Shalom is. It wasn't like, if you want to know, it's permitted. If it's permitted, it's not the same type of satisfaction of best. So the words are sweeter. So if it's actually, even though it's called saying this as one idea, there's two different concepts in here. The first concept is this idea of mikla kanbia, the mikla of the other. What does that mean? That the full pleasure of dia has been removed, sometimes this mikla has been destroyed, and it's been given over to only over Abira. So it's a section this morning. It's such a good idea that we're sleeping on Rabbi. And he says, listen to this idea. He says, Hashem is a mikla hayakayim. And it is a mikla stood. Bashim hayashor b'Yisrael, Shavi Shem Shloah, is in Klal Yisrael. Shavi hayad l'kadosh atzmo kiroi, there is hazivot. Listen, it's interesting. Oh, yeah, very interesting. What is the interesting piece is this idea of a person being kadosh themselves, sanctifying themselves, to perform and during the act of relations. So I think for many of us, I think are familiar with this concept, but bringing up the most basic ideas. Because again, intimacy can be beautiful, obviously should be beautiful, should be meaningful, but kadosh and holy, it's strange, right? It's a strange concept. It's a strange concept. And it should be very contextually it's holy because it was marriage and hopefully creates future generations. He says, when this mikdash stood, there is the ability to infuse a dynamic of holiness even into intimacy. He says, in calling this mikdash, Kasha is this. Kasha me'od l'kayim shnei hadvarim, ha'nitzvah me'od. Once it is a mikdash was destroyed, it's very difficult to experience pleasure and holiness at the same time. Okay, pleasure and holiness. Pleasure and holiness simultaneously said the man of God is very, very difficult to come by in a world without his image. So this is such a profound use of language. When it's not pleasure and holiness, it's that because of pleasure and holiness in other intimacy. In other areas of life, pleasure and holiness go very well together. But in intimacy, sometimes again, it's hard to distinguish. It's hard to feel both that feeling of personal pleasure and holiness interwoven together. So that's what Yitzchak says. It says in Yom Shechar B'Samikdash, when this mikdash was destroyed, mikla come beyond. The mikla looks like that. What does that mean? That somehow the enjoyment of biyah, the enjoyment of intimacy, was taken over letter holiness and was made a bit more illicit. He made a bit more famous. Was put a bit more in the category of just a pleasure to see.
It's starting to snow. The spades on her little discomfort. Where does it come from? This is me.
It's operation. It's operation. Operation has anything and everything on his fingertips. Anything he couldn't have. He ate that. That was the only thing he couldn't have. And that was the one thing that he touched. That's the shot. What's it all? Yes. We are constantly inconsistent in the class. What's that? The shot. There's so many things that we're allowed to do. Rely on drug vibration. I say this so big. You see down. It actually comes up everything. Everything that we want, we desire, always comes from a good place. See, my most innate desire is for growth. I constantly want to be more. I constantly want to become more. I want to live in a consistent state of growth. So that's what the Shema says is more, and more. What happens in life? Too often in life, you know, it's like when the Shema goes ahead, dispatches a message. Right? When the Shema dispatches it to the body, what's the challenge? The challenge is that the body often corrupts the message in different ways. We see this a lot in life. Let's say that it's interesting. When people get to my mother is speaking in Shabbat, she's speaking of that, my mother actually grew up, she was born in New York after New York, and she, their parents settled in New Jersey, and their fathers were in the Rock actually had a very really pure in the Jewish community. But the one thing we didn't have there was a high school. So one thing we don't have, my mother actually came to the Sacrament Baltimore. So we moved to Baltimore 21 years ago. And my mother was like a tremendous social. Like this young female, so she was speaking about the beautiful flesh. She was beautiful, much stronger than my flesh. She was much more beautiful. And she was speaking about homesickness. Homesickness, it was so beautiful. Homesickness, everybody went to my brother, to the power. And what's homesickness? So where's homesickness come from? The Shema used to go forth. The Shema always used to go forth. But when you start getting a constant thing, calling the Shema to halakha, and every Shema to praise God. And the Zohar Kadosh writes, the term is Shema to halakha, with every breath you have to praise Hashem. Every single time a person exhales, the Shema wants to jump out of the body and go back to Shema. And it goes back to the Shema inside of the body. So the Rabbi said that's why every single time you breathe, you have to thank that Kadosh Baruch Hu, because he's keeping the Neshama in the body. Right? Because the Neshama is one sick. So what happens? The Neshama, right, has a message of homesickness to the body. So how does the body relate to it? How does the body relate to it? The body relates to it ultimately again as, again, physical homesickness. That's why we experience it. You know, it's going to vacation. So what happens when you're on vacation? That's a few things you want to know. It's interesting, right? Especially when you're right? Everyone's like, everyone's out. After this crisis, you have the most incredible vacation in life. But there's a certain point where you're like, okay, where's the best? Hold on, like, I really want to go home. And why? It's beautiful, fantastic. Because the message says that it comes from the Neshama. The Neshama says, I want to go home. Every Neshama wants to go home. And broadcast the message to the body. I want to listen, you see this so many things in life. I say one of the most fascinating dynamics that human behavior do is window shopping. Window shopping. I can't understand. So like people enjoy window shopping. I think it's the same as saying that Shema wants to acquire more mitzvahs. So what happens is it broadcasts the message of acquisition to the body. So when the body gets that The body often converts these messages into something physical. The shocking people like the shocking folks to acquire. It's a singularity over here. Why are you drawn? Why are you drawn to the forbidden items? It doesn't come from a bad place, okay? I want you to pay attention to this. Yeshua wants to acquire more and more and more. And it's constantly broadcast into the body. Do you need more? Do you need more? Don't content yourself with what you have now. I want more. I want more resources. I want more to do stuff. But all too often, what is happening? The body corrupts the body corrupts the message of Yeshua. So when Yeshua says, you need more, let's do it. Let's do it. You want more? I'm going to give you more. The problem is, the body has to correct the message. And the body takes the message of more, including that which is forbidden. That's why, again, it's so often led to the 90 million couple, to the forbidden water, to the stolen waters, because that's the body's corrupting the message of the Neshama for more. And that's why it's so important, because a lot of those will hold certain things in life. We often like to think, and we often condition to think, that the things that hurt you are a result of certain carnal desires, wants, and lusts. That may be true. But sometimes you'd be surprised that those desires really are coming from the Neshama. But it's the body that is corrupting the message and taking you in all the wrong directions. Incredible. I said, how can I watch and say, no, all right, I'm going to top this, like straight up. So it's like, so again, these are the people who experience the straight up execution message. We spoke a little bit about, we're going to get into the dynamics of straight up. Remember, straight up is not burning someone, but that straight up is internal. Internal straight up is not what we spoke about this already before. Let's speak about it more than we know to go. Let's go back to it. I don't know what's happening. These are the people who are executing straight up. You show me that a man has relations with a woman and her daughter. The best stages and stuff, and the best kind of weekly relations, so you sell extensively. Maybe it's the part you show me that. There was other people included in this category of women and her daughter. They were Detail, who's including of his brother, Vice Detail, the daughter of his brother, Mas Detail, the daughter of his son, Vice Detail, the daughter of his wife, Mas Detail, the daughter of his daughter, Bas Detail, the daughter of his son, Hamosel, mother-in-law, name Hamosel, the mother of your mother-in-law, name Hamas, and the mother of your father-in-law. So again, we'll have to break out these categories. I have to break out these categories into a little entities of strength to analyze. How about Isha Shanesa Bito? Now it's interesting. The Mishnah doesn't say if a man has relations with a woman whose daughter he married. But it's only it doesn't say if he has relations with the mother of the son. Right? If you have a Isha Shanesa Bito, which is a woman's daughter, which is actually his mother. So it doesn't say that. Ella, how about Isha Bito? By Russia, the Mishnah is a man has relations with a woman and her daughter. Yiflau, Yitalvani, Sirah. Which indicates that both of these women are prohibited. And mind you, so who are these women that we are discussing? Chamosa and Chamosa. That you're talking about one's mother-in-law and the mother of one's mother-in-law. Yikafuni, and relate. That there are other people included in this category of a woman and her daughter. Yiflau, Yitalvani, so let's say the inference is that these three, in other words, Chamosa and Chamosa, are really explicitly, but that's not true. But Hanaf Midrasha Asya, and once we get it, we're not Midrasha. So when you call out that Abai, Mother National Nation, you can imagine. So what is Abai? So it makes a lot of sense because Abai says that if I look like this over here, is the ability to choose certain conditions. But recently, that you keep on the level of Chamosa, and you see the Maslisimani. But when Rabbi says that no, it's coming to the mother-in-law, even after the death of a wife, such a means married to Rachel, that's his means married to Rachel, he's committed to Rachel's mother. Let's say Rachel dies. So Rachel dies, he's legally committed to marry his former mother-in-law. So that's a point that we can see. And with a lover, turning her body, Isha Shena Sabita, so for example, I would say, one of the Mishnah has, Mepal Rabbi, what the Mita, one of the Mishnah with a woman whose daughter he married. Which is represented in the mother-in-law. Okay. Yes, Isha Ibita, how many times have you come into the Mishnah? So again, we fit in the category of a woman and her daughter. Or including the kid come also mother-in-law, they come also the mother of your mother-in-law, they come up, and the mother of your, and the mother of, and the mother of your father-in-law. So we have to last year, I used to come by with this year, come up, Tiny Nani come also, they come also. Sabari says, really, what the mission started to teach me of yours, the principle of the come up, the mother of your mother-in-law. Mother of your mother-in-law. So see, he said, mother of your mother-in-law, it also includes mother-in-law and mother of your father-in-law. Sorry, Charles, I read it wrong. According to Bible, what teacher in come up? The English of the US is the mother of my father-in-law. That's the English. But since it said it also included mother-in-law and mother of the mother-in-law. Okay, the Rabbi, I use the Kabbalah with Mr. in come up. The in come up, so Tony read that's it. Tony come up, so the same as it could be what to teach me. The mother of my father-in-law, it also includes mother-in-law and, mother of mother-in-law and mother-in-law. So now you mean, so how do we do all these prohibitions from? We tell that brother, as you should also know. So the passage says, if a woman, if a man, will go ahead and you got to marry a woman and her mother. So let's remember again. So here the passage is quite explicit. The Isha Shalika has issued us enough. The Zina Zina, the Isha Smalki. So again, here this is an explicit passage. If a man will marry a woman and her mother. So we're going to marry Rachel and Rachel's mother. You see the Gemara says, Zina is this by Ish's Rachel. Ultimately against Srecha. So this is what we explicit procedure about Srecha. So the Gemara says, Isha Shalika has issued us enough. Any other Isha, I don't know that it applies to a woman and her mother. Bas Isha, Bas Vita. How do you know about calling relationships? What about Bas Isha? So let's say again, the positive teachers mean that what? If we marry Rachel, we can't be married, we can't marry Rachel's mother. We can't marry Rachel's mother, okay? How do I know that he also can't marry, right? How do I know that he also can't marry? He's Shamila. Bas Isha, Rachel's daughter, Bas Vita, the daughter of Rachel's daughter, Bas Bina, the daughter of Rachel's son, Elijah. So again, Torah tells me about Rachel's mother. How do I know about the generations down below Rachel that the prohibition was? So it makes it very simple. Nema Khan Zima says over here by mother-in-law Zima. The Nema Na'alon Zima. And it says again, this is the case of Bas Ishta, the daughter of the one's wife. This is also Bas Isha is Ita next to Gara. That's the explicit passage as well. You can't go ahead and marry both a woman and her daughter. So it says Zima by mother-in-law, and it says Zima by Bas Ishta, the daughter of the one's wife. Not Na'alon Ita, the Bas Ita, just like the Gemara refers to ultimately her daughter, and the daughter of her daughter, the Bas daughter of her son, Achkan. So it's over here, Ita applies to daughter, Bas Ita is the daughter of her daughter, so Bas Bina. Incredible. Now, says this according to the tables, how do you know that she's like women now? At first, that's look at straight to you. Let's just these labels. How do you know that you have to treat men like women? Now, my friends, you know that? Says over here, Zima, again back from myself, and if I got to show, it says the Zima. Now, I'll come to the tables, I'll first come to the tables, just about the year. The truth is complicated. So to me, the truth is complicated. So you must, okay, also like I said, you know what that means yet. You know what that means yet. We'll get to this today. You know, I'm also from not to kill about it. How do I know that we should make that which is mentioned below, like that which is mentioned above? Once again, no idea what that phrase means. So, you know, it's interesting that it's stylistically, you know, does this in more kind of myself and read it myself. We have no idea what it means, we have no idea what it means, and then we explain it later on. You know, think about it stylistically, we just explain it where it is. So remember, God teaches so many profound pieces of life in this life, even in very nuanced ways. So much of life is being able to continue forward, even if you don't understand something. Things happen in life, you're conscious, but the danger of the conscious is sometimes you get so hung up on the questions that you become immobilized. Sometimes you become so bothered by the things you can't answer. Yeah, I can't move forward, do like this. Yes, it's no. So you know what you do, you feel it right now. If you go from saying no to do, no to do, keep going. Keep going. That's what you understand it. You'll understand it. Or not. Find out and realize whether you understand it or you don't understand it, you're going to have to move forward one way or the other. But one thing is clear, just because there's a good kasha doesn't allow you to get stuck in place. And it's like, what is important to life simultaneously, right? Because we all come up on those situations where like, what is this? It's my kasha, not a kasha. And it's so easy to lose yourself under that abyss of life questions. If you have very good life vision, you get to that life crisis that you don't understand, ask the question, move forward. More often than not, when you move forward, you find the answers you're looking for. And even if you don't find the answers that you're looking for, you still need to move forward. Incredible. So you might say, how do you know to equate that which is mentioned below with that which is mentioned above? So again, just to understand that you'll see exactly what all of this is referring to. And here's the point I want you to remember. We have two psukim, right? Now we're trying to Torah especially speaks about two relationships that all three feel very, very emotional. Number one is Isha Sharika, Isha Vastima, married a woman and her mother. Right? And then the other is Erebas Isha Bita, a woman and her daughter. Those are the ones we have explicit. Everything else, we're extrapolating from that. The way it goes is a process of extrapolation. Extrapolation is what like I said, extrapolation. So the rest of this virus, extrapolation sounds so much more like methodical. Everyone can extrapolate. Extrapolation, it's, yeah, okay, there you go. So the rest of this virus. And it's like, sometimes I think about it. You know, last us the market, you know, so how do you know? Excuse me. A catastrophe. A casualty is sushi. How do I want to equate that which is mentioned below that which is mentioned above? That's what you are here for, zero, zero. Mala halal, lamata kilamala, akalamata kilamala, umaska lamala kilamata, akalamata kilamata. Let's see exactly what this means. Alright, okay, so now let's unlock this website. So the first thing guys, the first thing I said was, we have to make Sechayim like the cables. Memorize women. So the Gemara says, what is that? So the Gemara says, come on, the Gemara says, come to the cables. That's what the cables. What does that mean? It means come to the cables. That's you know, device you can tell. So it looks like this, it means like this. That in the sun, right? So when I was just going through the rough, so it is very correct. So maybe it's like this, that we already learned that Ruffles' daughter's brother is pretty food, right? My Ruffles' brother's brother is pretty food, so too, maybe again, that Ruffles' son's daughter is also pretty food. Okay, so just like Ruffles' daughter's daughter, like Ruffles' granddaughter from her brother from the T-Day, so to Ruffles' granddaughter from her son is also in the T-Day. So you imagine the Yom in the possibility that's Lita, Ba'adia Ba'adia, right? All three of them are joined out together, and the Ein Hamad Ke'ein Chamosa. God is going to include instead the mother Ein Hamad, the mother of Reuven's father-in-law, like the mother of Reuven's mother-in-law. So the verse is one second. Hashka Ein Hamos Lo Kamalad, Ein Hamad Me'adrama. We haven't established, we have not fully established a condition of my mother-in-law's mother. Right? We have not fully established that. So now we said it, but we didn't establish it. So how can we go ahead and start having on a ritual sitting, like again the mother of my father-in-law, before we fully establish the mother of my mother-in-law on the base? So I'm not buying a lot of like this little argument to what to say. So now Allah says, share up on the money, to share up on the money. No, I'm using like this. How do we know that the same way that her relatives are related to him, so again, his relatives are related to him as well? And then my hands, you know, etc.
Miracles are. Dash, I wish it could be said about me. Up to source, in trouble. IPN's tuck is its good suppression. Someone else's past is easy to swallow. So much as spiteful, just to get someone yet to wish to be disappointed. Causes people everywhere to get delicately brought up. Dash into element to you. Marvelous practical truths, lucky things. Alice and Linus wished to say kind of all person is to be found in real life. How about succeed? How by night? Form vow either. Ultimately, mistakes, wrong way, wrong version, bachelor, altar peg, altogether, altar cover, altar appreciating, and altar rich, altar bitter, and altar trumpet, album, thesis, and absolute, short tail, ubiquitous, imaginary, a skeptic, and atheist, wasted opportunities.
Anyone who comes from her right
Wasted
and the mother would be her mother, and so like mother's father's mother, so on and so forth. So they're coming to say they're coming to their life, mother of the mother and mother of the father-in-law. That's not the Kilamara, but rather lost. That's the Mama Kilamara. Remember, look at the top is down.
Very derogatory. Once you go in here, I should have such a life. I should bring home chickens, policy to the passion, micrograms, and testicles. She would be my grandfather. As a miracle, she heard me last night. God finished it. I wants to eat it all. Finds a stick.
Like the prohibition of love, that's relative.
Calls a convoy. Dash tough love. Too bad. Let's watch it. Socket shy girl. Leaves sage down Treibstoff. Two people say no true. The third one goes to sleep. The two people confirm something. It's true. Dash relieves. His boy can test. Dash, that's how it goes. His breakage. Dash is so soon. His wife does kitchens. Dash that's how it goes. Coffee, cakes, flour pastry. Batch, Chester, curry paper, moisturizer, he announces the presence. Most people moms are praising the giver. Here's his mother. Testicles, being imitated, persons of high standing, now vanish, quiet, respectable, well-mannered, they dishes health, respectable juice, substance and good standing in the community, pale priestess, mistress of the house, according to someone who is a true housekeeper, she is the priestess, truck driver rows on the personal load standing, down latches, sometimes used sarcastically, is he an expert? That's toilet, small suction cups, usually the size of a common shop glass, used curing hands in the past. Some people still swear by the kept resistance to it.
It says when other generations above Rachel. It says what makes you not, and it says ultimately your generations below Rachel's as well. So you might see nothing like this one as well as after another country level. So it's just like below Rachel is 3 generations. So if you see in that shit, there are 3 generations above Rachel as well. We're not the only head. I'm sorry, I don't know what to guys. We're not the only head. Also, the nuts are killing my love. It's just like when it comes to punishment, I use straight up. We need to get a bunch of the nuts on, kill them out. We need the 3 generations below Rachel, just like the 3 generations above Rachel, I use straight up. That's how that nanny also remember killing my love. So when it comes to the love, the love is also quite important. If you're getting the love, killing my love. So what's that? So interesting enough. Interestingly enough, you see we have this fascinating relationship between the 3 alliance generations above Rachel and below Rachel. So listen, so again, it really is quite fascinating because essentially what we begin to see is with that lifestyle, to assist with relationships. Can't marry Rachel and your daughter, that's number 1. And number 2, ultimately you're going to can't marry a woman, can't marry Rachel and your mother, and Rachel you can marry a woman and her daughter. So that's what I got. And now what we do, what we're about to say, us about the knowledge and the matter, and not just the matter, is we're building up the framework. Ultimately, again, to 2 generations above, 3 generations above. Beautiful, beautiful. So Rashi says, no. The only 3 times, no, let's go back to what we said originally. We're not going to listen. Just remember, we're not going to lose. It's not going to get touched. We're not going to lose a lesser isser. A lesser isser. You know, the man so just like a bunch of like I'm gonna buy you, I'm gonna buy every crop. Even Rabbi says the Bible says that your mother, you should even after the Bible, because your mother will be fired, and you have to look at you should get the right. But the city of this location is not about the grandmother. Rabbi says, being around Gomez, so it's very interesting. So Rabbi says as follows. Being around Gomez, don't we not we know. Being around Gomez, don't we not we know about Okibasra. So as we've seen this many folks out there, that's what in general, we look at zero Shabbat. So Shaila is the same as greatest focus on Zero Shabbat. So don't we not only want to for Allah was a little Zero Shabbat. So you Allah for the Shabbat, the result is all the children legal. Versus don't we not only not keep that strong means that ultimately the real leader is much more focused on the result. So we must listen to this. So we know that so again, so what we have to change every way we understand the Zero Shabbat. Ultimately, again, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I don't think it's not going to be nothing good to really about changing the mother of his mother. Why not? So the mother is going not. So the mother is ultimately going to focus. The result is very much reflected on the origin of the So it says, not he in Mahasura. Just like by law. Again, his mother is going to be ascertained. Abdullah is in Mahasura. So they believe in his grandmother, his mother was by Yasser. You look on this way, again, you look on the place of origin, not super straight up, just like again, you look at the nations. If Rachel's mother's mother, like Rachel's her grandmother, in Rachel straight up, she doesn't straight up. So if you're looking at the nations, it's grandmother, as you get to straight up, you know, never straight, you might say, never straight up, and really straight up. But again, to a that's like that straight up, it's not coming with steel up. You have to pick your car. You know, you strictly the straight up, so it's like ultimately again, when it comes to that, the issue with her mother doing the things that which I say about, come out of the room, she will steal up. It's a little bit, she's a good man, but she's steal up. No, she will steal up. Anyone straight up, doesn't make sense. That he didn't have relations with his own mother, it's with steal up. But it's ultimately again, the mother of his mother is straight up. So it's not for those more. Not he, no character. Not he, no character. But they know what they do. Just like when it comes to Rachel, it's a distinction between her mother and her mother's mother. Even if you look at what both, they know what they do. Something like this,
Not so fast. Don't pop. Chats. Pitch him. JC. Chats Corporal. Dash Rabbi. Checker. Feather. Shade. Jesus.
Just like my reference, the mother's mother is also
It's like a pig.
his mother's also going to be also Gucci Basra, and let's direct directs from that result. Hustle who's in the state farm. So there's a young guy who's in the state farm. About how it's below. And also the religion yes, is the Ashton Below. And he finds the country by his message is below. So remind us, you must remind us of the coming up, you can live on. And what do you think that says that three first more from the other person? One thing I was at that time, 76 age. Now we do. She's really on the street farm. But I reckon they should reckon money in that street farm.
Wise man, slain, unwise guy, cherubim, horseman, right saying, roses, color, horse, plague. Action shove a bill, baby person, respect person, Jersey, rapid fame, Tri-State County, bright and groove, engaged couple, choice in nature, make fun of, create green, horseradish, open, sword, sugar, rose, happy, Chuck, activity, Shabbat, stand largest arrow, base, ambulant fellow, dash state God,
You notice, you see it all like this.
Just famous on working. It's starting to rain. Lots of people here. This piece of me. Toss inheritance lines. My heart told me. I'm independent. Toss is ours. That's all. Toss is okay. The same. America came home. Dash don't bother. Don't place my head. Trace it. Dash it. Tree icon. Scatter brain. Tree listeners. Top used is associated with alligator. D. Drug. Human dung. Feces. Webster pit. Inferior merchandise or work. Insensate talk or excessive flattery. Triviality talk. Mean spirit. Valuables that don't grab on a plate. Troll fever. Absolute. It's not what they think. Judges. Steps. Wait.
Listen, it's important to show tremendous
Sometimes official figures that can process for this. You can't pay for my back. It's not
to talk things out and to remove things that are single and show. Even in your mind, you have to understand this.
So condemned to wander For a time,
She
this
has
wall
less
begins
clarity than
itself
when you started.
to escape the
In and of
perpetual
itself,
torments
that valid
inflicted upon it by evil spirits.
fix it up
Devon seeks
as
refuge
something
in
that's
the
skill.
volumes of
And this
pious
stuff, the
men
reason
who
why I
live
focus on
with
Shangri-La,
demons having no
because
power.
everything that I can do to be
It's a
successful in life
capitalistic
is
deception.
it's all here. And this is sometimes having
With
conversations with
disparaging
like,
exclamation.
what are you talking about?
Catch
Didn't we just talk about
perhaps
that? Or didn't you just say something
disparaging
different?
about him.
So like, giving
For
some
example,
people part of
having
that.
high
Just the simple
merely
space to
and
express themselves.
dash versions. She wants to be in the show. Judgment. Stop.
It's a profound stepping stone in building a relationship. Because you can't get to the conclusion unless, of course, you're first ready to go through the process of talking and re-talking and re-discussing. So because I'm not just giving this information about how to get through the things that snake up, but rather in how to address, how to deal with and how to have foundations. So, that's something today. What's a new we just recite this year. This is
Tracy
what
Sheriff Forms Russell. He wanders around like a walking bear. He was arrested for feelings just with her sickness. He regrets life for her. He eats like a horse. For half an AK. He has nothing at all to live. He has a boil or a line at her. For hobby absorbed. He hasn't got out of worry. Or is the nitric tiger pearl? Dash she's a low down good for nothing. Or is she going to? Dare nothing. Dash the nuisance is here already. Detail finds out. He ruins it. Established Weisenberg. He pretends he doesn't know he is doing something wrong. Example, sneaking into a movie theater or sneaking to the front of a line. Toy tag limit. He's no good, worthless. Gervard Sack, lit. He's throwing himself. Except resents toy life spills. He's restless. Lit. He sits on the
also, I can only the talk to this first part of the show to begin a new week of learning together. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's share. We thank our annual Talmud Torah sponsor of Tavshin Pei Tosim Mishpacha for dedicating all the share instructions this year, wishing a Mazel Tov to Yeshua Mordechai Tolson on his engagement to Amit Kohen. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. Our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Adar, Abba Alinu L'Tova, Terry and Steve Sin, loving memory of Terry's father, Dr. Hari Khan, Steve Hirsch, and Yosef HaKohen. Ziv of Living and Burning Families in memory of William Ziv, Zev Shmuel Ben Yisrael. Our Day of Learning sponsors, Maya Hafni, in the schus of Avram Ben Yadina, Shulamit Bas Brenda Mino, Baruch Raphael Melech Ben Shulamit. May they all have health and hatzlacha. Beautiful. Our Dafyomi sponsor today, Alan Wiseman, in memory of his father-in-law, Charles Newman, Zechariah Ben Yisrael C. and Ellie Rothschild, in honor of the new baby girl, to Zazie and Michelle Rothschild. Mazel Tov, Zazie's grandparents, Chaim and Karen Rothschild, and his sister Lala Moshe and Yardina Garden, and Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, result to continue to show us troubles for Child Yisrael. Those we died, let us begin. Today's topic is Ayin Hey. I apologize to you guys, we have to end the Shira a few minutes early. But a minute. Thank you. I wasn't planned. I just want to point out it was not planned. So thank you. All right, so let's over here packing a lot. Well, I'm also going to start from the top of Ayin Hey. I saw Robert D. Tree yesterday. Did a great job. She was very, very little notice. I'm sorry. He did a really good job. I do feel he was showing off a little bit at the end with the pace. He had to get from I'm giving him a days to the middle of Ayin Hey on the album. So he was showing up in old man. Whatever. It's fine. It's okay. Alright, so just for the sake of the story that wasn't there, for the sake of having a recording as well, I'm just going to start from the top by $90. 75 days. I'm going to leave them around. I'm going to read them around. There was once a story of a man who set his eyes upon a woman. The hella libo b'tiva. Right? And what happened? His heart is filled with incredible desire. Now Rashi points out that here hella libo b'tiva ava itamte libo b'hella. Ultimately, again, he became lovesick. Probably better stated, lust-sick. But ultimately, again, it becomes the fact that he was one of us. By the way, a tremendous Moshe Haskell just in the beginning. Where was the mistake? Where was the mistake? Where was the mistake? Let's say one of the reasons that we have to be so careful, what we look at, is because like the Gemara says, Einayim knows that the eyes see the Halev Chomet. Once you look at something, it unleashes a certain process going forward. So it's incredible. It's so good from the beginning where the mistake was. Shenasan Einav B'Isha Achas. Why look that way? Why not be careful with Shmiras Hainayim? Why not be a bit more careful? Well, again, listen, we all know this sign. We know this sign incredibly well. But the life is fascinating to see. Sometimes in life, things go off the rails, and you're not exactly sure, like, where it went off the rails. And then there are other times in life where it's so abundant, where exactly things went off the rails. So here, Nasan Einav. So you must involve the Shalom Yofim. The Kimini asked the doctor, Va'amru, Ein Lo Takana Achi Tival. And the doctor said, this guy is not definitely ill. The only possibility, the only referral you can have is if he has relations with this woman. Okay, Amru Chachamim. No, can't do that. So again, we'll say, so the first just as much as something about Rhino's situation. So again, so Rhino is one of the things that you have to soon give your life for, then to go and transgress. So the doctor said, okay, download the phone of Aruma. So okay, fine, he doesn't have to have a relationship. He just has to be able to see her unclothed. Ultimately, again, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. So the Gemara says, young stock, I'm on the phone of Aruma. So the phone said, no, it's you can't do that. This is not how we operate. So Gemara says, so let him talk with her. Okay, so you can't have relations with her. You can't see her unclothed. Let her talk with her. And it's interesting, at this point, the doctor has already understood that there's a sneeze issue here. So he said, she not have to speak with him in the face. Or let her speak with like. So the Gemara says, Chazal, the Rabbi said, ultimately, let him die, but let them not go ahead and have this conversation. What's the fact? What's the matter about the conversation? The context is everything. What's the context of this? The context of this was an illicit, immoral urge. Nasan Einav Ba'osi Isha. So again, to be honest, this entire thing took on an air of immorality about it. So the Gemara says, who was the woman? Who was the woman? Chad Amar Eishes Ish Haisa. So once Ish was married, that makes a lot of sense. If you're a married woman, so you can understand the incredible resistance that the rabbis had to any level of interaction between this man and this woman. However, the other thing is that she was single. She was single. So according to the scene that says that she was a married woman, Shakir, the whole story makes a lot of sense. If she was single, I don't understand why disregard her. What is it exactly that's unfolding here? So the Gemara says, the Papa said ultimately again, because of Pigam Mishpacha. Now, who's Pigam Mishpacha? Rashi said the end should Pigam Mishpacha. Ha'isha shahayu koshu v'davar. Even if she was a single woman, it would have been embarrassing to her family and reputationally potentially damaging for her to go ahead and take a shift. So it might be the shift. I've been drilling a lesson seriously, so just to try to figure out where we're going. Okay, got it. Right, it's shifted this way, right? Yeah, this is a very wide. Okay. So, anyways, the Gemara says as follows. So the issue over here is that halacha l'maisa, there is Pigam Mishpacha. If this girl would get engaged, in other words, even if she was single, if she would be engaged in this type of behavior, it would have significant reputational damage upon her and upon her Mishpacha. So that's what this is about setting an example. Let's setting an example. Let's say, one of the things we live this now, right? We live in this type of society. It seems to be the pendulum maybe swinging back the other way. But like where there's no code of morality. And whatever you feel or however you identify, whatever you say that becomes the truth. Then when there's fluid morality, there's no morality. That's the truth. So Chazal, when you say the rabbis and the Sufis over here, that halacha l'maisa, you just allow these kind of things to go on. Even though, again, in one mikvah argument, just let the guy speak to the woman from behind the wall. What is the big deal over here? He's not going to see her, he's not going to drag her. But it's about what it represents. And what it represents is this guy becoming lustfully infatuated with a woman, and suddenly again, us catering to that desire. That is an illicit, immoral desire. And what do we do with illicit, immoral desires? What do we do with it? We shut it down. We don't cater to it, we don't pander to it, and we don't pretend that it's okay. Society, in order to preserve a system of morality, must have a clear delineation between what is wrong and what is right. And if that means that the guy's going to die, listen, what the reality is? The needs of the many always outweigh the needs of the few. That is the cloud problem. Just because someone thinks something or wants something doesn't mean that everyone else has to do it. There is a system, there is a society, there's a code of conduct, and that has to preserve us. Even if it means the guy's gonna die, the guy's gonna die. The guy's gonna die. So the Gemara says, but then I shall say, if you're single, so there's much easier remedy. There's much easier remedy over here. Let him get married. Let him get married. So the Gemara says, no. Ninsav, let me ask the diet. No, because if they get married, they don't have funds out of it. In other words, right? So in other words, if they get married, so then what's the point of all this? After the Gemara says, Yom Shekara Beis HaMikdash, Nikla Tampiyah, and Nikla La'ovre Aved. So Yitzchak said, this is a fascinating thing. The Greater Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Literally, Nikla Tampiyah, which means the full pleasure of Biyah was removed, the full pleasure of relations was removed and was only given over to sinful behavior. Now we're going to talk about what that means in just a moment. Shnei Amar, Mayim Ginugim Yitaku, they let him start in there. Again, literally, still in water is sweeter, and hidden bread is more pleasant. So the idea over here is part of the role of this lost is that he couldn't have it. That's part of it. It wasn't because if you marry her, it's permitted. If it's permitted, it's not the same to this idea. There's actually, even though Yitzchak saying this as one idea, is really two different concepts here. The first concept is this idea of Nifla Kambiya, the Nifla Ovre Avera. What does it mean? That the full pleasure of Biyah has been removed, society has been destroyed, and it's been given over to only Ovre Avera. So it's actually this morning. It's a beautiful idea, but the same thing wrong with Rabbi. And he says this, listen to this idea. He says, Karsha Beis HaMikdash Hayotayim. When the Beis HaMikdash stood, Bashtina Hayashora B'Yisrael, Hayashora B'Yisrael, Meshina, is in the Kal Yisrael, Efshari Haya Ad Hadish Asman Kiroi, Beis HaZivot. It's interesting. One of the most fascinating things is this idea of a person being Kaddish themselves, sanctifying themselves before and during the act of relations. So I think a lot of us are familiar with this concept, but it's one of the most elusive ideas. Because again, intimacy can be beautiful, obviously should be beautiful, should be meaningful, but kadosh and holy, it's strange concept. It's a strange concept. It's a strange concept. So it should be more. We understand in the contextually it's holy because it builds marriage, it hopefully creates future doros. But Rabbi Gadol says, when the Beis HaMikdash stood, there was a dynamic of holiness, even in intimacy. He says, in Kohen Beis HaMikdash, listen to this, Kasha Ma'od L'Chayim Shnei HaDvarim HaNizkarim La'el Gam Yachad. Once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, it's very difficult to experience pleasure and holiness at the same time. There's going to be pleasure, and there can be holiness. Pleasure and holiness simultaneously, said the Noam Megadim, is very, very difficult to come by in a world without a Beis Hamikdash. So this is such a profound reason. Now again, when we talk about pleasure and holiness, it's got to talk about pleasure and holiness in the realm of intimacy. In other areas of life, pleasure and holiness go very well together. But in intimacy, sometimes again, it's hard to distinguish, it's hard to feel both that feeling of personal pleasure and holiness interwoven together. Together. So that's what Yitzchak says. Because in Yom Shechar Beis Hamikdash, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Nitla Kam Biyah, Nitla La'Ovei Avera. What does that mean? That somehow that the enjoyment of the enjoyment of intimacy was taken out of the realm of holiness and was made a bit more illicit. Was made a bit more carnal, was put a bit more like in the category of just a pleasure-seeking type of activity. It's fascinating. Then he goes on and he says that again, why couldn't this guy marry this girl? Because not even in the couple. Because part of his lust and part of his desire was that he couldn't have it. Let's say, we know this right, we know this in life, What is it? The forbidden fruit is always sweeter. Stolen waters are sweeter. Where does this come from? She'll say, where does it come from? Where does it come from? It's marriage is this. Adoration. Adoration had anything and everything at his fingertips. There was one thing he wasn't allowed to have. One thing he couldn't have. The das Tovara. That was the only thing he couldn't have. And that was the one thing that he took. What's the pshat? Let's say, by the way, it's for all of us. It's for all of us. There are so many permitted things in this world, yeah? We are constantly and consistently drawn to happiness. What's the pshat? There are so many more things that we're allowed to do. They're great. They're fun. They're pleasurable. Why are we drawn to happiness? So listen, something deep down, it actually becomes like everything. I do not listen to this. Everything that we want and we desire always comes from a good place. See, my most innate desire is to grow. I constantly want to be more. I constantly want to become more. I want to live in a consistent state of growth. So therefore what the Neshama says is more, and more. What happens in life? Too often in life, it's like the Neshama goes ahead, dispatches a message. Right? The Neshama dispatches it to the body. What's the challenge? The challenge is that the body often corrupts the message in different ways. You see this a lot in life. Let's see, it's interesting. The people get my mother was speaking on Shabbos, I love so beautifully. She was speaking about that my mother actually grew up, she was born and grew up after the war, and my grandparents set up in binding with Jews. So my grandpa was growing up in ROTHSCHILD, had a family lived in the Jewish community there. One thing they didn't have there was a high school. So amazingly enough, like my mother actually came to the sacrament of Baltimore. So we moved to Baltimore 21 years ago, and my mother was like a tremendous servant. That's his love. And she was speaking about nothing beautiful. It was beautiful. Much further than my girlfriend, but beautiful. And she was speaking about homesickness. So homesickness, is really homesickness relating it to my daughter, to the palace. And what's homesickness? Where does homesickness come from? The Neshama yearns to go home. The Neshama always yearns to go home. We're going to use this right now. Tell the Neshama to halal talk. Every Neshama has to praise God. And the Zohar Kadosh writes, every breath you have to praise Hashem. Every single time a person exhales, the Neshama wants to jump out of the body and go back to Shemayim. And it goes right inside of the body. So the Rabbi said that's why every single time you breathe, you have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because He's keeping your Neshama in your body. Why? Because the neshama is homesick. So what happens? The neshama broadcasts a message of homesickness to the body. So how does the body relate to it? How does the body relate to it? The body relates to it ultimately again as a physical homesickness. That's how we experience it. It's interesting. Even if you go on vacation, so what happens? What happens here on vacation? What happens here on vacation? Right? After a few days, you want to come home. Right? It's interesting, right? Especially if you're with your kids. Right? In other words, after it's fascinating. You have the most incredible vacation in the world. But there's a certain moment you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I didn't want to go home. Why? Like, it's beautiful. It's fantastic. Because, there's something that comes from the neshama. The neshama says, I want to go home. Every neshama wants to go home. And it broadcasts the message to the body. I want to say, Father, you see this in so many things in life. Listen, one of the most fascinating dynamics of human behavior to me is window shopping. Window shopping. I can't understand. Right? People enjoy window shopping. It's the same soul. The neshama wants to acquire more and more and more and more mitzvahs. So what happens? It broadcasts the message of acquisition to the body. So when the body gets that, the body often converts these messages into something physical. So shopping, people like to shop, people like to acquire. It's the same dynamic over here. Why are we drawn? Why are we drawn to the forbidden items? It doesn't come from a bad place. It actually comes from a place of holiness. And the neshama wants to acquire more and more and more. And it's constantly broadcasting to the body. Give me more. Give me more. Don't content yourself with what you have now. I want more Torah. I want more mitzvahs. I want more kedusha. It's all too often what ends up happening. The body corrupts the message of the neshama. So the neshama is saying, give me more. Let's do it. Let's do it. You want more? I'm going to give you more. The problem is, the body often corrupts the message. And the body takes the message of more, including that which is forbidden. That's why, again, we're so often drawn to the mind-reading pockets, the forbidden waters, to the stolen waters, because that's the body's corrupting the message of the neshama for more. And I will say it's so important because a lot of times we were told certain things in life. We often like to think, or we often condition to think, that the things we're put to are a result of certain carnal desires, wants, and lusts that may be true. But sometimes you'd be surprised that those desires really are coming from the neshama, but it's the body that is corrupting the message in the wrong direction. Incredible. Let's say, incredible. New Mishnah. Yeah, this stuff. All right, on to later topics. So again, these are the people who experience Sreifa, execution by certain. We spoke a little bit about, we're going to get into the dynamics of Sreifa. Remember, Sreifa is not burning someone, but rather, again, Sreifa is eternal. Eternal Sreifa, the Lord can never spoke about this right before. We'll speak about it more in the Gemara. Let's go back there. Anyway, these are the people who are executing Sreifa. A man who has relations with a woman and her daughter, the bas cleanses himself, and the bas Kohen who committed adultery. So we saw that extensively. There are other people included in this category of women and his daughter. Now we'll have to define a lot of these lines in the Gemara. Bito, who's included over here, his daughter. Bas Bito, the daughter of his daughter. Bas Bino, the daughter of his son. Bas Bito, the daughter of his wife. Bas Bito, the daughter of his daughter. Bas Bino, the daughter of his son. Kamoso, mother-in-law. Then Kamoso, the mother of your mother-in-law. Then Kamot, and the mother of your father. So again, we'll have to break out these categories. To do a little bit more depth. So the bottom line, all of these arayos are forbidden and held to this strength. So let's analyze. Now, interesting, the Mishnah doesn't say that if a man has relations with a woman whose daughter he married. Right, so in other words, it doesn't say if you have relations with the mother of, sorry, right, if you have a relationship with the woman who's going to the mother. So it doesn't say, Ella, Haba, Now, Russia, the Mishnah is a man has relations with a woman and her daughter. Well, the Tarbai will be seen, which indicates that both of these women are prohibited. So who are these women that we are discussing? Chamoso and Chamoso. It's actually talking about one's mother-in-law and the mother of one's mother-in-law. Vekatoni, and we learned Yesh Bechlal Isha Ubita, that there are other people included in this category of a woman and her daughter. Nechlal Yitarbayu Sidi Beheshra. So I must say the inference is that these two women, in other words, Chamosa and Chamosa, are written explicitly, but that's not true. Bahana Midrasha Isra. And ultimately, they're learning that from Midrasha. Shahani Khalad La'abai, the Olam Hashmal Darshan, Ikarinagi. So going to Abaye, so this makes a lot of sense, because Abaye says that the fundamental focus over here is the ability to intuit certain prohibitions. Masnisin money, Rabbi Akiva, El Rava Dama Famoso, La'aka Misi, Masnisin money. According to Rabbi, who says that no, it's something to prohibit your mother-in-law even after the death of a wife. So let's say he is married to Rachel. So obviously, when he's married to Rachel, he's prohibited to Rachel's mother. Let's say Rachel dies. When Rachel dies, is Reuben permitted to marry his former mother-in-law? So apparently that's a point of contention. So according to Rabbi would say one has to read the Mishnah as the following: one who has relations with a woman whose daughter he married, which is a reference ultimately against mother-in-law. Okay. Yesh Bechlal Isha Ubita Chamosa Ve'isha Chamosa Ve'im. So again, included in the category of a woman and her daughter are included again in Chamosa, mother-in-law, in Chamosa, the mother of the mother-in-law, they Chamot, and the mother of your, and the mother of, and the mother of your father. So the Gemara says, La'abaye, I think Kabbalah Mishnah in Chamot, Hani Nami Chamosa Ve'im Chamosa. So Abaye says, really, what the Mishnah is trying to teach you here is the case of in Chamot, the mother of your mother-in-law. Mother of your mother-in-law. But since it said mother of your mother-in-law, it also includes mother-in-law and mother of your father-in-law. So the Gemara says, sorry, I read that wrong. According to Abaye, one teaching in Chamot, the Kiddush over here is the mother of my father-in-law. That's the Kiddush. But since it said that, it also included mother-in-law and mother of the mother-in-law. Okay, the Rabbi, I think Abaye was listening in Chamot. So, tell me them bless you. Tell me Chamot. So, never say no, since the Mishnah wants to teach you. The mother of my father-in-law, it also includes Chamosa, mother-in-law, and, mother of mother-in-law and mother-in-law. So, you know what I mean? So, how do you know all these prohibitions from? Ish Asher Yikach as Isha Vestima. So the pasuk says, if a man will go ahead and Yikach marry a woman and her mother. So remember again, so here the pasuk is quite explicit. The Isha Asher Yikach is Isha Vestima, Zimahi, but Ish Yisrofu. So again, here this is an explicit pasuk. A man will marry a woman and her mother. So Reuben marries Rachel and Rachel's mother. You see the Gemara says, Zimahi is Ismus, She's roasted, ultimately again straight up. So this is one of the explicit psukim about straight up. The Gemara says, "Isha sheikach es isha vestima, ein el isha v'ima." I didn't know that it applies to a woman and her mother. Bas isha ubas vita. I don't know about close relationships. What about bas isha? Reuben marries. So let's say, so again, the pasuk teaches me that what? If Reuben marries Rachel, who can't he marry? He can't marry Rachel's mother. He can't marry Rachel's mother. Okay. How do I know that he also can't marry? Right? How do I know that he also can't? Elohim Ishavila. Bas Isha, Rachel's daughter. Bas Vita, the daughter of Rachel's daughter. Bas Bina, the daughter of Rachel's son, Minai. So again, Torah tells me about Rachel's mother. How do I know about the generations down below Rachel? That the prohibition applies. It must be very simple. Ne'emar kan Zima says over here by mother-in-law Zima. Ne'emar lahalon Zima. And it says again, later on, this is the case of Bas Ishta, the daughter of one's wife. This is also Erbas Isha Ubita Lo Sigara. That's an explicit pasuk as well. You cannot go ahead and marry both a woman and her daughter. So it says Zima by mother-in-law, and it says Zima by Bas Ishta, the daughter of one's wife. Ma'alahalon Bita Ubas Bita, just like over there, it refers to ultimately her daughter, and the daughter of her daughter, Ubas, the daughter of her son. After so to over here, Bita applies to daughter, Bas Bita, the daughter of her daughter, and Bas Bina. Incredible. Minayin Lasos Sefarim Kinikevos. How do we know to treat men like women? Now, at first glance, we don't know what that phrase means. We'll explain it later. How do you know to treat men like women? Ne'emar kan zima v'ne'emar la'alan zima. It says over here zima, again by Hamoso, and by Bas Ishto it says zima. Ma la'alan is from Kevis, Afkar is from Kevis. Just like over here, we treat this comment from Kevis. So over here, we treat this comment from Kevis. So okay, listen, like I said, we don't know what that means yet. We don't know what that means yet, but we'll get to this today. How do I know that we should make that which is mentioned below like that which is mentioned above? Once again, no idea what that phrase means. We'll say, it's interesting, but it's stylistically, if you like this, there's no kind of Raisa, and we read the Raisa, we have no idea what it means, we have no idea what it means, and then we explain it later on. When you think about it stylistically, why not just explain it where it is? So remember, God teaches us so many profound pieces of life in Muslim, even in very nuanced ways. So much of life is being able to continue forward, even if you don't understand it. Things happen in life, you have to be conscious. But the danger of being conscious is sometimes you get so hung up on the question that you become immobile. Sometimes you become so bothered by the things you can't answer. I can't move forward. I can't graduate. No. Do you know what you do when you read through a Raisa that you don't understand? You know what you do? Keep going. But I don't understand it. You understand it. Or not. But anyway, whether you understand it or you don't understand it, you're going to have to move forward one way or the other. But one thing is clear. Just because there's a good kasha doesn't allow you to get stuck in things. And I will say, one of the most important life nuggets of information, right? Because we all come up on those situations where we're like, what is going on? What is this? It's my kasha, my life kasha. And it is so easy to lose yourself under the net abyss of life question. The abode of life is, and you get to that life crisis that you don't understand, ask the question, move forward. More often than not, when you move forward, you'll find the answers you're looking for. And even if you don't find the answers that you're looking for, you still need to move forward. Incredible. So the Gemara says, how do we know to equate that which is mentioned below with that which is mentioned above? Ne'emar kan zima v'ne'emar la'alan zima. Ma la'alan kilamata kilamala, af kan lamata kilamala, ומה כאן למעלה כלמטה, אף לעולם כלמעלה כלמטה. So again, just to understand over here, we'll see exactly what all of this is referring to, the למעלה and למטה. And here's the point that I want you to remember. We have two sutras, right? What we're trying to do over here is Torah explicitly speaks about two relationships that ultimately are going to be punishable. Number one is Isha Shayikaf es Isha Bes Ima, married a woman and her mother, right? And then the other is Ervas Isha Ubita, a woman and her daughter. Those are the ones we have explicit. Everything else we're extrapolating from there. The Gemara is not going through the process of extrapolation. Extrapolation is the word. Yeah. Right? I'm sorry? Like I said, extrapolation. Right. So the Gemara says as follows. Extrapolation sounds so much more like methodical. Anyone could extrapolate. Extrapolation, that's, Okay, anything. So the Gemara says as follows. Looks like 6 lines up from the bottom. How do we know?
It's getting dark in my eyes. Let's just go and help him. Dash nothing will help.
How do I know to equate that which is mentioned below to that which is mentioned above? Ne'emar kan zima v'ne'emar la'alan zima. That's going to be our Xer Shalom. Zima. Ma la'alan lamata kilamala, af kan lamata kilamala, u'ma kan lamala kilamata, af la'alan lamala kilamata. Again, we'll see exactly what this means. All right. Okay, so now let's unravel this price. So the first thing the price said was, we have to make Secharim like Nikitas, to make men like women. So the Gemara says, what is that? So the Gemara says, what the world does that mean? It means come in the cables. Ilema, bas vino, kibas, ita. So maybe you'll see like this. Maybe like this. That the son, right? So remember, let's go with Reuben and Rachel. Right? Reuben is married to Rachel. So maybe it's like this. That we already learned that Rachel's daughter's daughter is prohibited to Reuben, right? Rachel's daughter's daughter is prohibited to Reuben. So too, maybe again, what is going to make men like women? That Rachel's son's daughter is also prohibited to Reuben. Okay, so just like Rachel's daughter's daughter, right? Rachel's granddaughter from her daughter prohibited to Reuben. So too, Rachel's granddaughter from her son is also prohibited to Reuben. So the Gemara says, so the Gemara is coming here. Right? Ultimately, again, are those learned out together? And the Ein Chamav Ke'ein Chamosa. Rabbi is coming to include instead the mother Ein Chamav, the mother of Reuven's father-in-law, like the mother of Reuven's mother-in-law. So the verse is 1 second. Hashta Ein Chamosa lo Kamalon. We haven't established, so we have not firmly established a prohibition of my mother-in-law's mother, right? We have not firmly established that. So now we said it, but we didn't establish it. So how can we go ahead and now start adding on additionally soon, like again the mother of my father-in-law, before we firmly establish the mother of my father-in-law? On the base, so I'm not buying advice like this. None of the other things what to say. You know what it means is like this. How do we know that the same way that our relatives are prohibited to him, so too again his relatives are prohibited to him as well? Zima, it says over here Zima, and then Zima. Okay, I have a heart to shine the day of Zima, but it comes to his own relatives, there is no option of Zima that is mentioned. And Rabbi, I'm going to be Sakadumi, Asya, Hena, Asya, Zima. Okay, so what's the name of the Torah of the other Hena, and Zima. Remember, Vinayla says the Matter to the Mala, so beforehand he said, how do you know to live? That which is mentioned below, like that which is mentioned above. So once again, my lamata to lamala. What does that mean? What does that mean? Ilema, bastinov, so maybe something like this. Maybe let's say, so I'm trying to figure out the lesson of lamata to lamala. I'm trying to equate arayos that are lamata below to that which is above. Okay, so maybe it means like this. Maybe it's going to teach me that, right, we're going to mention that Rachel's son's daughter and Rachel's daughter's daughter have the same status as Rachel's daughter vis-a-vis Reuben. Okay, so the says if that's the case, it's all in every same source. Hello, in Chamosa. Rather, it's going to say like this. The same way that Reuben can't marry his mother-in-law, right? So too again, he also can't have relations with the mother of his mother-in-law and the mother of his father-in-law. If that's the case, I lamata kilamala, lamala kilamata. Then we'll say Lashon. Because we'll say Lashon of lamata kilamala sounds like, if you understand it, let's assume the midpoint. Who's the midpoint of all of these alliance relationships? Like the middle? The wife. Rachel, right? So Lamata would be anyone who comes from her, right? Her kids, grandkids, and Lamala would be her mother, and so right, mother's mother, father's mother, so on and so forth. So if we're coming to say that we're coming to her now, mother of the mother-in-law, mother of the father-in-law, then I will say that's not lamata to lamala, but rather what? That's lamala to lamata. Because remember, we're going from the top down. So the Gemara says, you're right, tiny lamala to lamata. Yeah, you're right. Change the option, and that is it should be lamala to lamata. So let's how do we know to make the prohibitions of mother-in-law or mother-in-law's explicit, right? Or really mother of mother-in-law and mother of father-in-law, just like the prohibition of Rachel's daughter to you. That essentially, Reuven's relationship brings a relationship to Rachel's, Reuven's relationship. This whole thing is just one big mess. And I was like, that Reuven's relationship, what? No, here it is. Reuven's relationship to his mother, to his mother-in-law's mother, and his father-in-law's mother, is just like his relationship to Rachel, his wife's daughter. That's it. Same way that he's prohibited to his wife's daughter, he's also prohibited to his mother-in-law's mother and to his father-in-law's mother. And therefore the Gemara says that's what it means to say, how do we know to make Lamala? Lamala means, again, the generations above his wife, i.e. his mother-in-law's mother and his father-in-law's mother, just like Lamata to his wife's daughter. That's it. Yafi, that's the case. Ne'emar Kanzim, Ne'emar Lala Zima. Says over here, Zima says, there's Zima. Ma hashta was the first part, like, Uma hashta in the Zima. Siva, and it doesn't say because it's a Zima here, because he's going to her. And Rabbi answered what he needs to say. Minayin Lassos, here it is. Minayin Lassos, Shlosha Doros L'Namor, to Shlosha Doros L'Mata. How do I know to go ahead and make the 3 generations above like the 3 generations below? So let's just remember again. If you look at Raised Rachel, if you make Rachel, although we call this Hadra Hello, we do Rachel, right? That was Raised Rachel. So how do I know again about to take the 3 generations above Rachel and equate them with the 3 generations below? It's just like the 3 generations below Rachel are all going to be prohibited to Ruvain, her husband. So too again, the 3 generations above Rachel will also be prohibited to Ruvain, her husband. Which the Gemara says, Ne'emar Lamala Zima, the Ne'emar Lamala Zima. It says Lamala, like are the generations above Rachel. It says Lashon of Zima, and it says Rachel Zima as well. So the Gemara says, Malala Shlosha Doros, Aflamala Shlosha Doros. So just like below Rachel, there's 3 generations. So to we apply the Zima metric to the 3 generations above Rachel as well. Uma Ba'oneh, I'm sorry, Aflamala Shlosha Doros. Uma Ba'oneh, Asa Lamata Kilamala. And just like when it comes to punishment, i.e. Sfeita, we made again about saying Lamata Kilamala. We made the 3 generations below Rachel, just like the 3 generations above Rachel and Sfeita. After Ashara, Nami Asa Lamala Kilamata. So too when it comes to the lav will also apply ultimately again Lamala Kilamata. So that's like, interestingly enough, we seem to have this fascinating relationship between the 3 Arayos generations above Rachel and below Rachel. So again, it really becomes quite fascinating because essentially what we begin to see is mid-Araisa, we have 2 explicit relationships. You can't marry Rachel and her daughter, that's number 1. And number 2, ultimately again, you can't marry a woman, you can't marry Rachel and her mother, and Rachel can't marry a woman and her daughter. So that's what I got. Now what we're doing, what we see, Asabel Lamala Kilamata and Lamata Kilamala, is we're building at the 3, ultimately again to 3 generations above, 3 generations below. Beautiful. And Rashi says, no. The other kid itself, that's what I said of the truth. Lamata means, let's remember what Lamata means is not going down in church. Lamata means a lesser Isser. A lesser Isser. The Gemara says, so just like when it comes to Rachel, right? The mother of her mother is Asher. So to against the living, right? The mother of his mother is just Asher. I'm Rabbi, in Sabai says, the Pasha says that your mother, you should emo akamataibo. Because his mother will be but the same biblical prohibition is not applied to grandmother. Rabbi says, so Rabbi says as follows. So as we've seen this many times in that way. The general we make it to Shabbat. So the Shaila is, what are you focused on when you make it to Shabbat? So don't we know that Shabbat. So really, halacha l'maisa, the result is very much rooted in the origin of the versus don't we know the Asra means that ultimately the real it's much more focused on the result. So we must listen to this. So, so again, so whether or not, so whichever way you understand the Ksei Shabbat, ultimately, again, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So I'm not going to not going to you're not going to be able to learn Isser about Ein Imo, the mother of his mother. Why not? So the mind never going to know. So the one says ultimately again, don't know which means we ultimately focus. The result is very much reflected of the origin of the word. So the Gemara says, "Ma he Ein Imo Asira." Just like by Rabbi, ultimately again, her mother is going to be Asir to the Afina Ein Imo Asira. So to the his grandmother, other results also going to be Asir. So we learn from this. In other words, again, we learn from the place of origin, not keep it straight up. Just like again, within the calculations, which Rachel's mother's mother, right? Rachel's maternal grandmother, we cancel by straight up. Not maybe straight up. So if Reuben has relations with his grandmother, then also has to be straight up. The Mandamar says, the Mandamar straight up from Reuben. And according to the opinion that says that straight up is more hammer than skiba, you can ask if you're a Now the king, Shikul, Ima, straight up. So I say ultimately again, when it comes to Rachel, say relations with her mother, who has this relationship with straight up, Tamar Baruch, she loves Skila. If he has relations with his mother, she loves Skila. But Ima Skila, Ima Skila, doesn't make sense. So if Reuben has relations with his own mother, it's with Skila, but with ultimately again the mother of his mother is straight up. So it's followed furthermore, Mahid lo Chalakta, Mahid lo Chalakta, but being Ima le Imo, just like when it comes to Rachel, there's no distinction between her mother and her mother's mother. So to my Reuben, there should not be a distinction between the prohibition between his mother and his mother's mother. Okay. And the Amers, the Hakosha, and according to the opinion that says, ultimately again, the skill is more hammer, you don't have to deal with the same question. Fine, let's get part one. Part two. Don't you know, what you guys and according to the opinion that says when it comes to the Zir Shabbat, we're much more focused from now the entire Zir Shabbat on the short of the Zir Shabbat. Just like by Rachel, his mother is also so to again remain his mother's also going to be also and let's derive the halachas from that result. Plus, some would be straight up. So the rest of the halachas is by straight up. About halachas is skill. But looking over here, she would have skill. The ashkich and the imam. As we find he's the punishment by his mother, just skill. So the man does. The man does say for kamura, he can live from. According to the opinion that says that straight is more kamura, we have another miracle. Once the miracle was at top of by 176a. Maruki. Shekini Mama straight up. I got my Rachel relations with Rachel's mother is really best for Omar Baruch. Share with Skila. I him relation much with Skila. Okay. Furthermore, I was saying, why should his halakha be different than hers? Or he's asking for hers. Mahi lo halak taba. Just like by Rachel, I will say, there is no distinction vis-a-vis Reuben, whether he has relations with Rachel's brother or Rachel's mother. Either way, again, it's going to be straight up. Afu lo taklo bo ben vito so to by Reuben, there should be no conflict between relations with his brother or relations with the mother of his mother. And the man, the Amar Skila Chamura. But according to what it says that skill is more kamar, ultimately, again, we don't have this same kasha about the issue of aim. Alright, so we're going to stop over here for today. I feel like we've reached real clarity with this. So we're going to, this is a good place to stop. So, okay, so bottom line, what's the takeaway? So maybe stay away from family gatherings. I don't know, maybe that's the thing, right? So just understand. To really simplify this, you actually remember, listen, this is just one of these classic situations where the Gemara is working for, let's say, found this so, let me first play that about the times. So it says over here, right? With the right stuff, two relationships, another explicit. What are the two relationships? A woman and her mother, a woman and her father. That's the are explicit. What our mission is doing is It's building out a framework. It's building out a framework of other relationships, ultimately, again, that will be treated like wife's mother, wife's daughter. And we have a friendship of both by Sreifa. The paradigm that we're using is Lemala Kilamata, Lemata Kilamata. Using the wife as the Arayos midpoint over here. What we're understanding is those who are above her, and we're going 3 generations above her, 3 generations below her, essentially are all going to have the same framework for Arayos. Now again, all the Gemara is doing right now is working through this process of trying to figure out how to get. The good part is, I know what the conclusion is because we read the Mishnah. Now we're just trying to figure out ultimately again how to get this conclusion. So what I will end up with is a tremendous understanding of this. If you notice, you see a Gemara like this. We went through a lot of Gemara, or I know Gemara, and it doesn't feel like we reached any significant conclusion. So let's say you see from a tremendous history. There's in life when you have a problem, you have an issue, it is incredibly important to talk it out. Incredibly important to talk it out. Now, sometimes it could be frustrating to talk things out. So this happens in marriage. It's important to say in marriage. Sometimes there's something perhaps that your spouse will talk about. So you're like, okay, let's talk about it. And then what happens? You begin talking about it, and you begin talking about it. Don't look at me blankly, right? You all know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, you look at it blankly, right? You talk it out, and then it goes on. And what happens? What do you think in your head? What do you think in your head? This is not going anywhere, right? This is not going anywhere. We're talking about the same things over and over and over. This is not getting anywhere. Listen, it's important to understand, tremendous to solving relationships, is that sometimes you just have to talk it out, even if it doesn't feel like it's getting anywhere. Sometimes just allowing someone to talk things out and to unload the things that are sitting on their neshama. Even if in your mind, like you think I'm just getting more confused, and I think I actually have less clarity than when you started, is in and of itself a cathartic and profound process. So often, when we're chazak, we skip all of this stuff. The reason why we focus on Shana Gemara, because anything and everything you need to be successful in life is in Gemara. It's all here. And this is so simple as having conversations like, what are you talking about? Didn't we just talk about that? Or didn't you just say something different? Or somebody's giving someone who you care about just the safe space to be able to express themselves, to talk it through. Even if you're left wondering what it is exactly that we are doing over here, is a profound stepping stone in building meaningful relationship. Because you can't get to the conclusion unless, of course, you're first going through the process of talking and re-talking and rediscussing. So Chazal not just giving us information about how we get to the complete list of sreifa, but rather again Chazal also telling us how to address, how to build, and how to bless our relationship. We'll say, we have something for today. We'll say maybe we could get a couple of things. We just recite this. This is straight. So what's off? What's off?
Grandmother's tale. Rabbi, friendly term for anybody you like. Endearing term for anyone you like regardless of age. Man built like an ox, nourish, coarse, rude person.
Never been in a relationship.
Bupkis, nothing. Something totally worthless, lit, beans.
Specifically, I asked to be chat.
Butch, chat, telling tales. C. Chai, Hebrew word for life, comprised of the 2 Hebrew letters, Chet and Yod. There is a sect of Jewish mysticism that assigns a numeric value to each letter in the Hebrew alphabet and is devoted to finding hidden meanings in the numeric values of words. The letter Chet has the numeric value of 8, and the letter Yod has the value of 10, for a total of 18. Religious school. Hayim Yaakov, Annie Tom, Dick or Harry, Shmiang or Cooper News, Bruno Gummo, Chaleria, Evil Woman, probably derived from Halloween, Chanshin, Faint. Challah, ceremonial and bread, either round or shaped long, used on Shabbat and most religious observances with the exception of Pesach, Passover, Chalash, Nadia, righteousness. General, donkey, jackass, scope, forward. Channel your 2-8. Flash with your head. Neutral, U.S. Also known as the Festival of Lights, commemorates the rebuilding of the Temple in Jerusalem. Hanukkah is celebrated for 8 days during which one additional candle is added to the menorah on each night of the holiday. Trafficking, dash baited, lid, catch away, catch a road. Chop high and lazy machine, dash make you suffer an ugly fate. Jumping, dash take it easy, not so fast. Lid, don't grab. Chancing, catch him. Chasing, winning. Chasing major, to plan and execute a wedding. Chascolate, dash God forbid. Shepherd, friend. Shade, animal. Chasing, canter. She's a wise of chasing, canter. Chasser, a pig. It's like a pig. Chast, swirl, pig's feet, anything bad, unpalatable, rotten. In other words, junk food. This word can also be used to describe a lot of household or other kinds of junk. Chassers, pig pen, slutty and country or house. C. Jacob, taboo, infinitesimal, worthless, unimportant, lit, human dumb. Chevron man, buddy, Chimay. Dash, bang, punch, slam, wallet, choke, unwise man, slang, unwise guy, choke, wisdom, right saying, criticism, colony, color, horse, plague. Chevron man, worth and dignity, person, respected person. Chosen, rabbit vein, chosen, riper, chosen Kelly, pride and growth, engaged couple, choice in nature, make fun of, ridicule, horseradish, carbon, snow, Shabbat plans, half-penny, chess, activity, Shabbat, can, piano, Shabbat and grant, stand during marriage ceremony, let's pay, craziness, Columbus is Medina, it's not what it's cracked up to be. Columbus is country, D. Delegate God, dash is God, dark renegade and college, dash is theology, usually said when describing the meaning of task. Debbie, pray, diminished, dash don't worry, dear village track, locked, man thinks, plans, and God laughs, dear right Ira is a motive, the world is stupid, dear Tate always Ira, just like his father, dear University, dear son, Armies, dear Givens, respect, to live to see, I should do live to see and get married. Daily history, expression, Dursteed's supposed to verify, dash you should show, chemistry, D, Easky, old woman, Easkies, old women, Easky woman, old men, diagonal Medina, old country, Diastertiary, the bottom line. Diazer's head, yeshiva students would arrange to be fed by various householders on a daily basis in different houses. Live, E-days. Engage, Disdain, it's starting to snow. Disdain is a hurricane. It's starting to rain. Das check out here. This pleases me. Das Hans hat mir gesagt. My heart told me. I predicted it. Das is pals. That's all. Das is Salve. The same. Train your head can't come. Dash don't bother me. Don't squeeze my head. Trace it. Dash keep moving. Tray icon. Scatter free. Treadle, spending time used to live is associated with the holiday of Hanukkah. D. Drow, human feces. Next prevent inferior merchandise for work, insincere type or excessive flying. Drug addict teller, mean-spirited, riding on a slave dog to grapple on a plate. Drug reliever, absolutely nothing. It's not worth anything. Drugs, the sticks, way out in the wild. Two things showing on. Dasher who's starting up again. Do not snitch IV and what condition mere second class S read list. You can't pee on my back and tell me it's rain. Dumb cop, dumb bell, dimes, lit. Dumb head, dirtful, before, failure. Digger, so condemned to wander for a time in this world because of its sins, to escape the perpetual torments inflicted upon it by evil spirits. The digger seeks refuge in the body of some pious man or woman who will demons have no power. The digger is a cannibalistic conception. A disparaging explanation, revenge, hubris, hubris, disparaging remark about anything.